Hey everyone, welcome back to Alert Alert, where we are covering episodes 9 through 12 of The Circle here on Silent Podcast, where we are anything but silent. My name is Kari. I am joined by my co host, Josiane. Josiane, how are you doing on this Friday evening?
I'm feeling good. This is my second time podcasting today, which is fun for me. I'm pulling a Carrie. Love this for me. But yeah, I'm excited. I feel like we've caught up on the circle and it's coming to the end of a chapter, but we promise you guys that we'll recap everything. So I'm excited to just get into it. And and like our I guess our season of recap also with a bang. How about you? How are you
Yeah,
feeling?
I'm good. It's been like a busy week in terms of just like podcasting and work, and that's really it. But I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but there's been a lot of podcasts and work. So I'm excited for this week to wind down. I'm excited to cover the end of the circle. So I'm just ready to get going with this. You ready for the Thunderdome? Just kidding. There wasn't much Thunderdome to this. So let's jump right
It was
into.
more like Love Island, perhaps.
Okay, I have Love Island questions for you, but now is not the time. So all right. We start all the way back at episode 9, which we were just saying seems like a decade ago. But
Literally.
the beginning of episode 9, we are at the place where Brew has to make his decision in the safety chain. And he is choosing between Carol and Alyssa. And we kind of went back and forth about who we thought he would save. But at the end of it, Brew kept Carol. Were you surprised by this decision?
I think I kind of touched on this last time we podcasted, but I was like, originally I thought he was gonna save Alyssa.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the throuple, the fact that they were also like flirting together. And then I had a moment of realization where I'm like, I feel like with the circle, the editing's kind of straightforward. Like
Mm-hmm.
the producers aren't trying to like confuse you. And we've always gone this Bruce Mama Carol relationship. And so at the end of the last podcast we did, I came to my senses and I was like, oh no, he's gonna save Carol. So I really wasn't surprised by what we saw. How about you?
So when I was watching it, I was trying to remember what I had predicted because I couldn't remember. I remember you saying like, after listening to what you said, I've changed my mind. And so I just couldn't remember like what my opinion was. So I don't know if I was surprised or not. I just know that like to me it made sense for Brew in terms of who Brew is because he
Hmm.
he's straightforward. I would say straightforward and loyal in the same sentence or same word. And I taught a 4-hour class today straight. So when my
All is
words fail
forgiven.
me, just, just ignore me. Um, but that's just seemed like very much a Brew move to
Hmm.
remain loyal to the person he was more loyal to. So Alyssa ends up being blocked. And I think one of the key things to bring up with Alyssa being blocked is everyone being surprised that one, she was blocked because she seemed pretty well liked, but two, that Yuling didn't save her. What do you think about the fallout from Yuling and especially I guess Yuling's reaction to it as well? Like what do you think of that whole situation?
I was so confused. Y'all, you guys know that I'm not necessarily an Alyssa advocate, but I just didn't understand everyone's reactions. Like Frank being like, I can save Alyssa. I was like, since when have you and Alyssa had a relationship?
Mhm.
Please show me the evidence, Your Honor. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me. And then Yuling being like, I understand why Yuling was shocked that Brew didn't save Alyssa because all she knows is the thruple. So
Mhm.
it's like, why is it that you didn't save Alyssa when we have a supposed alliance and like that's the obvious choice to her. But everyone else being like shocked, I was like, if you really think about it, did you really have a relationship with Alyssa? That's why she was at the bottom. Like when you have a situation like a safety chain or whatever it may be, like when people don't pick you, that means that like you could be disposable to their game. And when you're at the bottom, that means a lot of people feel that way. So I was surprised that that was the outcome. If you guys loved her so much, why didn't y'all save her? The math was not mathing to me.
Well, that was the point, especially for Yuling, for me, that this is now the second time in her game where something has happened that she has some responsibility in. She isn't fully responsible for Krista getting blocked because that was her and Alyssa together. She isn't fully responsible for Alyssa getting blocked because other people could have chosen Alyssa, but the fact that after both of those, she got mad at other people when really she needed to take ownership, in my opinion. Like, if this was a survivor type of game and you kind of have to like state your case for why you're winning, Yuling would have never won in my eyes just because she was like angry at everyone else for these things happening when she was a part of being directly responsible for it. And I was just so confused by her reactions that it kind of put me off a bit because it's like, how are you mad when you could have been the solution? You could have done something else. I don't know. I lost a little bit of Yuling fandom in that. I still think she's like she's funny, she's cool or whatever, but her gameplay for me was very perplexing because the first time I'm like, all right, you realize that like you played Alyssa's game. But the second time, you have no one to blame but yourself. And so to me, it just seems like she doesn't take accountability for her actions. And that frustrated me.
I think, but again, like, I don't blame her as much because if you think about it, like, she was kind of put in a situation where she kind of had to pick Rachel because at the end of the day, she just messaged Frank about the Krista stuff, apologized, told him she would ride for him, blah, blah, made an alliance with him and Rachel. If she would have saved Alyssa, she would have lost an ally in Frank. And to be quite honest with you, like, Alyssa could have been saved several different ways. Like, obviously, like, not to look into the future, but there are people who said that they should have saved Alyssa, which I also found really fucking weird. But it's just like, to me, I don't blame you, Lane, because at the end of the day, she could only save one person and she was in a position. Whereas, and that's why I was kind of annoyed with like her reaction towards both Brew and Yuling. I found it really weird because I feel like I felt like Brew had more of a direct responsibility because it's like you pick her, you pick someone else. Whereas there's so many other combinations to the point where Alyssa could have been saved. If Alyssa worked on her other relationships with other people, she could have been saved as well. I didn't appreciate the fact that I feel like she took also like Alyssa was like acting like she did a perfect game when in reality she really didn't. Like, she really screwed herself. As like, I feel like Nathan kind of like fucked her over with the whole like, you told me you were like you never traveled to Europe. What is this
Mhm.
thing? But like, I don't think I don't. If I would have blamed anyone in that moment, it would have been Brew because Brew could have picked me. It's two people. It's me or the other person. You could have picked me. You could have saved me, and you chose not to. So
I'm not 100% blaming Yuling. I'm more annoyed by her reaction to it. Both times where she's been a part of it. Cuz the other thing, if you like think of it from Alyssa's perspective, she basically, I think, viewed that she had two number ones. She had Brew and Yuling. So I do understand her frustration in like, I've made a three-person alliance with, and both of them bailed on me, like, that it does leave Alyssa blind to, like, the other relationships that are forming. So, like, I understand her frustration. I'm not, like, saying her game was perfect or even good. It's more, to me, like, I just didn't appreciate Yuling's response and how she was frustrated because I also understand Brew's perspective on it of like, okay, wait a second. If we're supposed to be this thruple, if we're this alliance, and Yuling didn't save Alyssa, then like something seems off to me. So I'm gonna go with the person that I see as my number one because like Carol was above Alyssa for him. So, like, I don't know. I understand all the decisions that were made, and I'm not questioning any of them. It's more the reaction to it that just
okay.
I am confused by because it is now the second time that Yuling is like, oh my God, this is someone else's fault. I'm so mad when, like, you're also kind of part of the problem. So,
Fair.
you know, that's
Fair.
all.
Okay. I see what
Yeah,
you're saying.
I like decisions I support. There I don't think anything was done wrong in terms of the decisions by anyone. It's more just like the reaction. But um Alyssa went to see Brew after,
Hmm.
and um even Alyssa says, like, "I would have picked Carol if I was you," so she wasn't, upset by it. She understood that Carol really tried to be loyal and trustworthy, so it makes sense to pick someone like Carol as an ally over Alyssa, which I appreciate her saying that. She had a bit of perspective on it.
I don't know. I just maybe I'm really biased, but I was just like annoyed the entire time. I just again, I get like the whole like they're a threat, blah blah blah, blah. And I think it's because we see it from like the fact that like we know more than they do. But for Alyssa to just like not be like she was like really freaking mad at Yuling, like really freaking mad. Because here's to say, hypothetically, imagine Yuling gives it to Brew. Brew's still picking Mama Kara, right? So let's say Yuling didn't get it first, like or no, yeah, she technically got it. No, she got technically got it second. But hypothetically, if Bruce still has to make that choice, he's still gonna pick Mama Carol. So for me, it's like I just feel like her anger. There was a lot of anger for Yuling, and I just felt like why aren't you holding both of your allies accountable? Like if you're gonna be you, I can understand being like a little bit mad and then being neutral with Brew, but for you to be like, oh, I get it, blah blah blah, and then for you to be really mad, like really mad, I just felt like, come on, like you, like come
I think
on.
Alyssa saw Yuling as her number one, and they also just had that experience of having to block Krista together, where I feel like that whole like influencer experience has to build some sort of like trust between you, you know. So I don't know, like I understand her frustration, because from at my perspective is that if I'm thinking from her perspective, she thinks she's built this really strong bond with the two of them, and I think she saw Yuling above Brew within those 2. Like, she said it in the show. She was like, "Yeah, Yuling's my number 1." And we even saw when she was talking to Nathan, she was, like, gassing up both Brew and Yuling to Nathan. You know what I mean? Instead of, like, taking the time to kind of bond with him over things that they could potentially talk about or have in common, they were talking just about, like, their mutual friends or whatever, like, surface level shit. And so, I think it's just, like, from her I get from her perspective why she's mad, um,
I'm not
at
saying
it.
don't be mad. I'm just saying like I would expect a little bit more of that energy. To me, it felt like 100% of it was just being shifted on Yuling when like Brew also had a direct response on that responsibility and she just didn't care. Like if Brew wasn't Brew, honestly, this is like my honest opinion. Like if Brew wasn't Brew, if it was someone else in that situation, she would have felt some type of way. But I think because it was Brew, she didn't like she couldn't like she didn't care that much or whatever. And
Mhm,
that's just like the vibe I got because if the roles were reversed, I still think she would have been mad. Like if Yuling had to pick between Frank or whatever, and I'm not saying that her feelings aren't like are misplaced, but also she has to realize that there's things that she did prior. Like if we're both influencers and I'm telling you, we both agree that this one person's a catfish, this person's ranked last, and like it's an easy thing, and you're still pushing because at the end of the day, like I'm pretty sure Yuling felt like she had to get Carissa out, so you just did that. You did that for yourself. And I think that also put a damage in her relationship because then when she goes to Chris and then she goes to Frank and whatever, whatever, it just like again puts that distance. Whereas if they would have gotten rid of Mama Kara, which wouldn't have been necessarily good for Alyssa's game, I do think Alyssa would have been held close and Alyssa could have focused on other relationships. Like I feel like there's like distribution that should be happening. And if like on like accountability on Brew and on Yuling. And I just feel like right now it just felt like Alyssa was just all on Yuling. And that's what kind of annoyed me because like it takes everyone first of all for you not to be picked first of all.
mhm.
And while I understand that that's Yuling's number one, Yuling has her own game. And obviously I'm saying this now like if you like, I'm not trying to spoil the finale, but Alyssa does say, I realized that you were playing your own game afterwards, which is what made me happy because I
Mhm.
got really annoyed by the initial reaction. But like, I was glad that she came to that response on her own. I just felt like it felt a lot of, but in that moment, you're probably not thinking straight or you're just very emotional, which is fine. But as a viewer, to be honest, I was kind of just annoyed.
She also went to go see Brew, and if she went to go see Yuling, I feel like Yuling would have also quickly disarmed her. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
I think it's even like Brew goes or I okay, like if we were fast forward a little bit through these episodes, when Brew ends up going to visit who he does, and and that person did far shadier shit to Brew, you know, like Brew still like took it in stride and like yeah, you could tell he was like a little frustrated by a couple things, but nothing where it was like where he was gonna go throw a temper tantrum or whatever. Like I do think that it also comes down to like a big part of it is because she's talking to Brew, it's easier to like explain yourself where she's only going off of like what she thinks Yuling is thinking. And she doesn't have that like
mm-hmm,
closing conversation with her as well. So it's I think it's so much easier to be mad at Yuling because you got to talk to Brew about it. And I think if she
mm-hmm,
got to talk to Yuling, she probably would have left there being a little bit more mad at Brew than she was at Yuling. So
mm-hmm,
I think that's also part of like the human component of it. Cause like you said, like I get being mad in the moment. And she also she realized like she's neck deep in this game when this all happened and then to like have the time to sit and think about all of it and she mentioned like yeah you were playing your own game like I was mad at first but like now I understand so there is resolution to it but um everyone else was pretty surprised that Alyssa got blocked that like no one ended up choosing her and that was basically the theme of the circle chat after her video and you know, just a common like, "Oh my god, I can't believe she's gone," and that there was a little bit back and forth between Yuling and Brew in terms of like who should have been saving her. They end up talking about it later in a one-on-one chat. So in that one-on-one chat, Yuling was like, "I was so confident that you were going to save Alyssa," and um Bruce said that like Yuling not picking Alyssa made him question the thruple, and Yuling said that she picked Rachel because she was most at risk as a new player, um, which actually is just because she wanted to be most loyal to Frank as opposed to her thruple.
I mean, she if Yuling doesn't take Rachel, Rachel goes.
Yeah,
That's what it is. So she didn't lie either.
yeah. No, I agree with that. I just think that like I just think she didn't even need to really bring up saving Rachel because then she lied to Brew. But do what you gotta do. Um, and Brew was like, "Yeah, I think everyone in that part should have been picking their strongest alliance," which he's kind of implying that he sees that okay, Yuling clearly has a stronger alliance than what
Yeah.
they supposedly had. Um, so Yuling reaching out, in my opinion, I thought was smart to try and like smooth things over. I thought Brew's reaction was smart because he said in that moment, he's like, I'm definitely more upset than I'm letting on, but that wouldn't be good for my game to get mad like openly with her.
You know what? And credit to Brew. I have been questioning a lot of his gameplay. I'm not gonna lie, but I do think that refraining a little bit of those, like you are allowed to be upset in that moment for sure, but for him to like refrain and just like keep it pushing was really good. Whereas Mama Carol just going at her in like the main chat, it was
Mhm.
like that's such dude. You were picked last. You're picked last. The last thing you need to do is get attention on yourself. Like
Yeah.
you were picked last. Like why are you doing all of that? Like it just don't make no sense. The math is not mathing to me. I'm like you're making yourself a bigger target than you already are. Like I don't know. I just feel like if anyone had the right to be upset the most, it should have been Brew. Because first of all, the, Yuli does not have an alliance with Mama Carol, and that's been
Mhm.
clear since like I don't know what episode it was, but Yuli's been anti. I think it was like right after Krista left, probably. She's been
Mhm.
anti Mama Carol. So I don't know why John felt the need to like. I don't know. It came off really entitled for someone who doesn't have an alliance with her.
Mhm.
I just thought it was weird. What was your reaction to that? Because
I mean, I thought that it was all just kind of unnecessary, I guess, because, like, they're clearly not on the same side, and, like, what are you accomplishing by doing this?
hmm
You're only putting yourself in a limelight that you don't want at this moment because clearly people, are not your biggest fan if they're not saving you earlier on in that safety chain. I don't like, why are you doing it? I guess why you're doing it is my big question.
very interesting choice, I will say.
Yeah. Um, quite frankly, I don't feel the need to talk about their whole, like, pedometer game because it didn't do anything for me. Um,
Was that when they were running around?
yeah, and, like,
Okay.
Yuling gets 1.08 miles and Nathan only got 0.45, and that was supposed to, like, expose Nathan, but not a single human being questioned it afterwards, so
I wish they would have revealed like one person, like whoever got first place or something, so that that can draw the conversation of, oh my god, I didn't expect you to get first place, blah blah blah.
Mhm,
And then someone could, then people would start claiming, well, I got second, so at least I'm not that far away from you, and then put that target. I think that was the purpose of the game, to start like throwing people off on scores. And
mhm.
like when you don't reveal it, like no one cares. And if you don't make a chat right after about the game, no one's gonna discuss or care. So I just feel like that was like a misstep on the producer's part of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just, I don't know. The game was useless.
We get a few different chats to end this first episode. The first one is a girls' chat with Rachel, Ewing, and Amani, and they basically talk about boys the whole time. And Trevor is convinced that none of them think that they're talking to a guy as he plays Amani in his catfish profile. Did you think that Trevor was right in that assessment?
Yeah, I think Trevor, um I think Trevor has done a good job of like kind of figuring out what the line is and like who his character is, because at the end of the day he's playing a character.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he's really figured that down to a T. Obviously, thanks to his wife, who was a winner in season two, I think he understood what the character he needed to come in with,
Mm-hmm.
and he delivered. Um, so yeah, I like I the Imani messages that I was seeing, I was like, oh, I feel like I've seen some of my black girlfriends like talk to me like that. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
that didn't surprise me.
Yeah. After that, we get Everson and Carol having a bit of a chat. They banter back and forth. What I thought was funny was when Everson was like, "Tell me a drunk story," and he's like, "Oh, it's probably gonna be like drinking wine in Italy." And then like Mama Carol's like, "So we were drinking wine in Italy," and like Everson predicted exactly, but um, nothing much else came from that chat besides those two like building a little bit of confidence in their relationship. Then we have Frank chatting with Amani, and they bond, however, they would be friends outside of the circle.
hmm
Um, Frank also opens up and talks about how it's like hard for him to date due to a variety of things, like um, that he experiences being uh, a bigger black gay man in America. So
hmm
um, Amani kind of like builds him up a bit. And my favorite part of this whole chat was when Amani said hose and Frank was like, "I didn't know we could say hose." I cracked up at that. I thought that was good. Um, I think that this conversation was important, especially for Amani, because it built a more concrete relationship with her and Frank, especially with how much power Frank ends up having throughout these last couple episodes. So,
mm.
um, anything you want to say about the Frank Amani relationship?
I think Frank does a lot of the hard, I don't want to say hard work, but a lot of the work when having these relationships, because Frank opens up and
Mhm.
becomes vulnerable, and then people react
Yeah.
instead of vice versa. Like, I think I can't name, maybe Yuling once, but I don't even think it was with Frank, where someone else has opened up and then Frank has had to been the one to react. So
Mhm.
I feel like I don't think it has credit to Imani, even though I like Imani. I obviously like it's not due to her, it's due to Frank, and Trevor slash Imani is just a good person and
Yeah.
is just reacting in a good way, in a positive way. But like, it's, I don't think it has anything to do with Imani. But Gray overall, I guess like Imani's lucky that Frank chose to have a chat, or was it the other way? I don't know who.
Frank chose to chat with
Yeah,
her.
so Imani's lucky that Frank chose to do that. Honestly, because he could have really had that conversation with anyone he felt comfortable with.
Mhm. And then last but not least, actually last and least is the
Oh
Yuling
Lord.
and Nathan chat. I have 3 notes on this chat. I'm going to read them to you exactly, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I hate this. Why are they allowed to send each other pictures? And I hate this in all capital letters.
Oh my god.
Those are my 3 notes on this conversation.
I, you know what I will miss about, I think, season one of The Circle is, or like, I think the UK version also has always done this. If someone, it's like getting a new picture on your profile
Mhm.
is like another level. It's a part of strategy. Like, there's a specific time for it. It's like you can now post a new picture of yourself,
Yeah.
and then people think strategically. They're like, "Well, I just posted this picture of us and stuff like that." And they've done times where they've had to release pictures through games, and I wish that they would still keep that aspect of the game, because your profile shows you versatility. So in that moment, I'm like, can anyone send pictures in their chats? Like, how
Right.
does that
And
work?
why is
What are
that?
the rules?
Yeah, I genuinely meant I didn't just mean like why as in why is this happening? Why do I have to watch it? I also meant
Yeah.
like rules wise, like why the fuck do they get to send pictures and no one else has gotten to?
And they don't, they also don't get to see those pictures
Mhm.
either. Like, to me, it's just like, the circle has rules.
Yeah.
Like, the only rule that they can kind of like play around with is twists. They have the right to do twists, whatever. But
Mhm.
it's like everyone is supposed to be on the same level. Everyone is supposed to be, it's supposed to be fair for everyone. So when you give access to those pictures, because that gained someone's trust in
Mhm.
that moment, that made Yuling feel more secure in Nathan. So it's just like, to me, it's like not everyone's playing by the same rules.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
that's like unfair to me. Obviously, like, first of all, my reaction to that entire exchange, I had to stop it several times. Like, I had to stop, take a breather. Like, I, one thing about me, I'm gonna tweet. I think I said I can't do this. I was like, I'm getting secondhand embarrassment. Stop it quickly. Like, I can't do this. So that was such an uncomfortable conversation, but also made me feel like the boundaries of the rules aren't explained. Hopefully we can try to get like Alex on or something so he himself can explain it,
Yeah.
because this, it didn't make any sense to me. But yeah, it was that was like a big waving red flag to me.
Yeah, after the or not last episode, last season of the UK circle, a lot of stuff came out about how like stuff wasn't done fairly. Um and I wonder, are like the UK circle producers and team the same ones that are making the Netflix one? And if so, like then it doesn't surprise me that this is happening. Um but yeah, that I don't know what angered me more is cuz like I don't know if I want to say I'm a rule follower, but like in games I do very much believe in fairness, and this is like the exact opposite of fair. Um and so that frustrated me. So I didn't know if I was more mad that they had this advantage of getting to send each other pictures, or the fact that I just had to watch them flirt on my screen for like almost 10 minutes. So I've talked more about this than I ever wanted to. I'm gonna keep moving on. RIP that chat. That's the end of episode 9, and we go straight into episode 10. Um, episode 10 starts with the circle cruise chat, and Everson conducts a scavenger hunt. And the only thing I want to say about this is chorizo an animal? Because I don't think it is. I can't hear you.
Great.
There
Sorry,
you
I hit
go.
the button. Um, no, I was gonna say honestly, I could name you maybe more than 10 animals. Really, really. The last thing I can think of is if a chorizo is an
It's
animal. Also, isn't that like a food item?
yeah, that's what it is. Chorizo is food. It's
Is
like
it like
I don't want to say it's like
a
sausage, but
tomato? Oh no.
it's uh what is chorizo?
Because
It's good.
as someone who's worked at Starbucks, we do have a chorizo
Mhm.
sandwich. I do know that. Couldn't tell you what
It's
it
a
is.
type of pork sausage.
Oh,
So, it's not an animal, but anyway,
yum.
uh
Also, I would lie that entire time. I would sit there with a bag of chips and
mhm.
yell something fake. How like to me that like that activity's fun, like it's cute or whatever, but it's like at the same time, I would probably just sit there. I could easily be like done. Like when they had to wear a bunch of layers of clothes, I
Mhm.
probably would have changed into a tank top, sat down, and been like done. And like, who are you to tell me that I'm right or wrong? 'Cause you can't see me.
I bet also at that point though, it's like, "Oh, finally something to mix it up." Like,
Mm.
"You know what? I'll play your dumb game because I'm bored as fuck."
Because
So
I've been staring at my kitchen and doing the same puzzle for the
yeah.
last 72 hours.
I've rearranged these magnet letters more times than I can count.
I've spelled my name with numbers and letters as many ways as possible. Help me.
Is this an uppercase P? Is it a lowercase d? It could be both if you spin it around. Anyway,
The world is your oyster, and so are these magnetic letters.
so after the scavenger hunt, Frank and Brew have a chat, and Brew really wants Frank to go beyond surface level, which is interesting to me because, like, I feel like it hasn't taken Frank
Oh.
much to do that. And um, they have this deep conversation. Frank tells Brew about losing both of his parents when he was young, and Brew just is like, "You're so strong," and says all the nice things that you're supposed to say, but obviously meant them. And this conversation is important for two reasons because it does, in my opinion, strengthen Frank and Brew a little bit, but it
Mm-hmm.
also um, definitely plays an important part to what goes on later in these episodes.
Honestly, I just found Frank to be such a hypocrite. Not Frank. Oh my God.
Brew.
Sorry, Brew. To be such a hypocrite during that exchange. I'm sorry, Brew. When have you ever been vulnerable? When have you ever given anything to Frank? I just
Mhm.
felt like that was so weird. Specifically because of Brew. Look at the placement that just took place. Frank got picked for the like he dictated pretty much the rundown of what happened
Mhm.
that almost sent you home, and then you have a message with Frank and you want him to be more surface level.
Mhm.
You need him more than he needs you. So for him to do that, for him to say that, especially when the person who's being vulnerable is actually like the one who's probably gaining something more so than like I don't know. I just found like that was such a weird comment to say.
Yeah.
Like if just because you haven't had deep conversations with him doesn't mean that he's surface level. Like that's what that was like. I felt like that's what was being implied, and I was
Mhm.
just annoyed because I was like, dude, you're the one who needs him. You're the one who should open up because if Frank is someone who does open up, I'm sure he would appreciate it if someone did that like towards him as well. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really freaking weird, and I was not here for that comment at all. Thumbs down.
Yeah, and I wonder like what motivated Brew to say that because um like was it that I think Frank does give off like very fun, friendly, funny vibes in like the group chat and stuff. Like he started almost immediately when he said like his memoir would be titties and tequila, and like he really like hit the ground running, showing his personality. And so I guess like it kind of shows the difference in the two of them, where Frank doesn't need people to be vulnerable with him or expect it, where like Brew needs that first. I don't know. It was strange him saying that. I didn't like almost I didn't like that he like kind of prefaced like this is what I need out of this conversation.
It was just very weird. Like again, Bruce strategy. I really don't understand what is going on. Like I don't know. It just didn't make no sense. We'll just move on because I was like, what the fuck? Obviously, it went well, but it's like, again, Frank is the one who is putting in the work in quotation
Mhm.
marks in these conversations because everyone's being reactionary. So it's like, if vulnerability is what we're basing rankings off of, don't you think you should be vulnerable? I don't know. That's just me.
I also wonder like if he has stuff to be vulnerable about. He's like a pretty
He's a white man who has 3.2 followers, to 3.2 million followers on TikTok or Instagram or whatever else. Like, I'm not saying that this man hasn't had it hard, but it's like,
no. I'm not saying it either. That's what I'm saying is like I just wonder like he's relatively young and he's like a pretty successful radio DJ at that age. Like um has what is considered fame in 2022 for someone his age,
mm-hmm.
something has been like my favorite running bit of this our podcast that I haven't mentioned to you is how many times you've said 3.2 followers instead of 3.2 million. So
Oh,
it's like he has 3 1/5 followers.
follower.
That's it. And you finally just said million for the first time out of all the times you brought it up. So the streak has ended. Uh, Josie has finally
I
accurately
broke the
told you
curse.
how many
Ah.
followers Brew has on TikTok. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I'm sure he's had shit happen to him, but
I've,
I
I,
also wonder how
yeah.
willing he is to expose that, because I was thinking about this. I haven't looked up Frank on Instagram, I will admit that, but Frank and Nathan slash Alex, I think are the only two people who came into this not having a pretty solid social media following. Like his Twitter, I followed Frank the day the cast was announced, and he only had a couple hundred followers. That's gone up by a couple thousand since the circle has
So
happened. Um, I don't think that like someone wrote an article about Alex slash Nathan being a Twitch streamer, but from a tweet that I saw, it didn't seem like he's like a big Twitch streamer by any means. Like,
it's just like what he does.
yeah, it's like a hobby for him that
Yeah.
like it's picked up for him a little bit now that the circle is on. So I do wonder if people like Brew, who if they put their shit out there entirely, have a whole bigger massive like is that an insecurity? Like I don't want to say anything too deep because there's so many people who may try to like use this against me online in my job, whatever, versus like Frank is kind of just your like Frank is not in that same realm. The same thing, like Yuling has a ton of Instagram followers. Krista has a ton of Instagram followers. Um, Alyssa has a decent amount. She has like 15,000 or something like that. Um, so and John does social media. I didn't look up his shit, but I assume that since he said he does social media, that like he has some following somewhere. That I really think like Frank and Alex were the only two that came in. I don't know what Everson's is. I imagine that as a cruise ship director, like you friend everybody because I know a cruise ship director and he has a shit ton of Facebook friends. So I feel like those two came in like the with the least amount to lose by how much of themselves they put out there. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like it's not like you're admitting to murder. Like you're
No,
not
no,
saying like,
no. I'm
but like you, but to me, it's like I get what you're saying, but at the same time, you're being exposed on a national level. So
mhm.
hypothetically, let's say that Brew has 3.2 million followers. on TikTok, some of them, and like let's say like we're doing a Venn diagram, that's the word. You have people who watch the circle, people who follow bro on TikTok, and there could be an overlap. And so hypothetically, let's say that 5 million people watch the circle, that overlap, there are people who already is gonna follow him or whatever. But like there's more people who are probably watching the circle than they follow Brew on TikTok. And so they're getting the same amount of exposure
I don't want to interrupt
because
you and be rude, but I take back everything I said. Frank has close to 90,000 followers on Instagram. So fuck me.
no,
There
I was just
goes.
gonna say that like hypothetically they're everyone is watching the circle whether
Mhm.
they follow Brew or not, so they're getting the same amount of exposure. So for Frank to be just so open to it, like everyone's gonna see that just as much as they're gonna see Brew do it. And at that point, if people like you so much, they're gonna follow you on social media. So I think it could have honestly benefited. I think people like relatability. As someone who does also work in social media, people like they don't they either like extremist celebrities or they like relatable celebrities. We've seen it with like Jennifer Lawrence or the Amy Schumer who tries to be relatable, which
Oh,
I
fuck her.
mean,
She
Lord
sucks.
have mercy.
She steals
But
people's content.
like that to my point is that it wouldn't have hurt him to also be open. And I just didn't like if you choose not to be open, that's also fine. No one's asking you to be. I personally like it's a game to me. So if you choose not to be vulnerable, that's totally okay because at the end of the day, we didn't come necessarily the circle isn't necessarily a place to come and like divulge everything. But if you're open and you're to talking about it and sharing that with people, that's more on you than it is the game. So I get
Mhm.
it. I'm not asking him to, but it's the fact that he went, well, I don't want any surface level shit before blah blah
Yeah.
prior to their chat. That just like is like weird coming from him and just
Yeah.
like was not the move.
Even Alex has like over 10,000 followers on Instagram. I wonder how many like have been since he's been on the circle, but you don't get that many Instagram followers from being on the circle. Like you just don't.
I'd be honest, I don't think I've ever followed anyone from any TV show if it wasn't on Twitter, and even then it's like a small few of people. Like
Yeah. I'll sometimes follow people like during the season and then unfollow. But I'm an avid unfollower. I unfollow more frequently than I follow.
LOL. I was gonna say,
Oh,
like, I feel like we're like this with the challenges. You follow them on Twitter, whereas like I'll follow a T page and just get all the
mhm.
information rather than
Yeah.
like following
I
them.
don't even follow them on Twitter, really. I follow it's more so I'll read Reddit and people will post things
Okay.
on Reddit. I feel like Reddit's really good at summarizing everything and I just like don't want to just sort through shit cuz even some of those um like the challenge accounts and like the Bravo accounts and all those things, it's like uh half the stuff they post is nonsense that like Reddit does a pretty decent job of posting what matters. So I'll just read the subreddits.
Maybe I should get into Reddit. I don't know. I have
I
a
love
Reddit
it.
account. I
I
just
read
maybe
it
I
all the
don't know
time.
how it works. You'll have to
So
teach me.
my like best teacher friend and I back in the day, we both were like, one day we both just want to be smart enough to know how to use Reddit. And so
That's how I
I've
feel right
gotten
now.
there. I've gotten there. We can teach you. But all right, let's keep going. Yuling has a chat with Amani and they talk about flirting with Nathan. I don't think there's much more to go into there. Um,
Go get him,
then
girl.
Oh, I forgot to say that. Oh, I fast forwarded through some things. I accidentally scrolled. My bad. So Amani chats with Everson, which is just flirting. So again, I don't want to fucking talk about it. Um.
It was honestly I found that less worse than Nathan and
Oh,
you.
it was way less worse. I just am like
Don't
whatever.
want to discuss.
Yeah, theirs was at least funny to me. Like Nathan and Yuling, I felt uncomfortable. Like I shouldn't be seeing this. Where Everson's was like Everson and Imani's was witty. So I
Yeah. Also, Alex was really uncomfortable during his flirting,
yeah.
and so it did aid me also feeling very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like Trevor's like, "Ah, I love being a woman.
Yeah.
And he's like he has like a glass in his hand and a hot tub. He's like, women's rights. Like I was like, this man is so unserious.
After that, they get the alert for the ratings. And as we know, if you've been listening to this podcast, I don't write down shit from the ratings because I just think it's a waste of time. So the ratings happen. We get Nathan and Rachel chatting. So Nathan like straight up says, "You're my number one," and they both agree that they're big on Yuling. And Rachel says she knows that she might need to be wary of Brew since he's close with Carol, and Rachel has very openly been against Carol. And
Mhm.
Nathan says he's skeptical of Brew for the same reason. So, anything that you think from this conversation is important in terms of like what might be coming up?
I just think Alex slash Nathan is doing his best to position himself.
Mm-hmm.
Um again, as it's I feel like a lot of people have this, as long as it's not me. I push it a lot as well because I'm like, again, as long as it's not me, because I
Mm-hmm.
can still win. So I think this is positioning for Nathan in regards to, okay, well, Carol is obviously someone who's probably gonna be disposable and probably go next. So if I put Brew and I'm still forming this relationships, well, these two newbies, I shouldn't worry about them
Mm-hmm.
more so. And so I'm thinking that he's positioning himself to be that fourth person within the inner circle, even though he doesn't know necessarily about the alliance directly. He has an understanding of those dynamics. And so I think that's the position he's doing. And I think we see other actions happen that, like, I think really damage Brew.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brew catches some shit. Definitely. I agree with that. I also think that it is very strategic for Nathan to just be like, "You're my number one. We came in together. Like, you're who I believe in. I want you to believe in me." Um, and I appreciate that move. It is actually, I'm going to hold off on that point, the point I was going to make for a little bit. After that conversation, this is when Yuling and Amani talk, and they talk about flirting with either Everson or Nathan. And again, not really a monumental conversation.
They just
After,
encourage each other, and that's it.
yeah, like go ahead, girl, shoot your shot. We get the ratings, and so our ratings are the following: in 8th place is Carol, in 7th
Mm-hmm.
place is Nathan, in
Mm-hmm.
6th place is Brew, in 5th place is Amani, in no, it isn't. In 5th place is Everson. In
Yeah.
4th place is Amani. In 3rd place is Rachel, which makes the two influencers Yuling in 2nd place and Frank in 1st place. So the influencers are asked to go to the hangout, and they get an alert. And this alert is a little bit different from our average influencer chat. Yuling and Frank must each pick 2 people to save. The remaining 2 players are at risk for going home, and the 2 influencers do not get to talk to each other or strategize before. They jump straight into it. So Frank has to save someone. To no one's surprise, Frank saves Rachel first.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do get Nathan saying, like, "Oh, I didn't realize that Rachel and Frank were that close." So I think that statement there kind of like alludes to something else later, but we'll get to it. Yuling saves Brew, and then Frank saves Amani. Yuling saves Nathan. So we're left with Everson and Carol at risk at risk of being blocked from the circle. And um how do you feel about these two being left? Any surprises? Do you think they should have made different choices as the influencers in people to save? How do you feel about this one?
Well, first, I found that the rankings were really interesting because if you look at the lineup, it's exactly removing the newbies because they're kind of like they didn't participate in the antivirus, but the order is exactly who got safety,
Mm-hmm.
except for the fact that Brew
And
and
Nathan are
Nathan
switched.
are switched. And that is due to the fact that Yuling has a guilt. Because if Yuling doesn't put Brew as the number one, and she does in the order Frank, Rachel, Nathan, and then Brew is getting fifth. So I think Yuling had, first of all, a really big hand on the fact that Brew was not second to last, and I don't think Brew really deeped it at that moment.
Mhm.
Um so I think he should give her a big shout out. I don't know what the heck, like, I don't know. But yeah, I just found it really interesting, and I think that also awoken, like, it woke up Alex in the sense of like, oh my god, what happened for me to be second last? So I found that really
Mhm.
interesting. And then in terms of like how they went about it, I get picking who you picked first. Yuling picking Brew, I mean, no, like, I get that she's in damage control, but then that communicates so much confusion to other players. Like, you saved, like, Rachel being saved is okay, but it would be more in your character to save Nate first. It would
Mhm.
make more sense, and it would be better for your game, because I feel like Yuling has power, a lot of power. If she would have saved Frank, a lot of people, I think, would be a little bit more open or receptive to Frank, because they're so receptive to everything Yuling says. So I found it
Mhm.
really interesting that she said Brew first. I get that she's in damage control, but like, again, it's just confusing. And
Who
then
do
they
you
get.
think she should have saved over him?
I think she should have saved Nate first. It makes more sense, because at this rate, um, Frank is safe, so there's no more point in that. Rachel is safe, so it would be more prosperous, or she would have gained more favor if she would have picked Nate and or Imani first rather
Mhm.
than Brew, because there is, like, I felt like it was pretty clear that there was going to be two people in danger, or there was going to be one person left.
Mhm.
So I would have played my cards a little bit differently. I'm not saying that she shouldn't have saved Brew at all, but at the same time, it's like there are other players that you have to worry about. Like, when you focus on one player, you're like, not, it's like, I felt like that move just like put her in favor with Brew, but put her down in favor with other people
Mhm.
because they weren't picked. You know what I mean? So, and also the perception, like her flirting with Nathan in like the public chats, like, I don't know. I feel like I would have, if I was playing the game, I would have been like, huh, so she's tight with Brew and she's tight with Rachel, and I know she got a relationship with Frank. So I would have looked at that and been like, she's too much of a player, and I feel like I would have made sure that she was a bigger target. And I think we'll see something later, but I do think that it put some ideas into other specific players, one person specifically, and then someone really drove it home towards the end of this episode.
Yeah. Um I don't know, to me it made sense in the moment. I think like the hindsight is 2020 of when you get to the finale of maybe how decisions in this could have potentially helped Ewing more, but to me it kind of made sense. I do think that it just would have been funny though if she hadn't picked Brew first and left Brew to second, because I feel like Brew had enough things happen to him that he took in stride, that if Ewing hadn't done that, that's when I would have been like, okay, I clearly see where I rank on everybody's list at this point. I was the second to last person in the safety chain, like the person who says that we're close again after she's fucked me over once before is not picking me. Like, I would have tried to burn the place down and see what happened. Not literally, but like
She's an
figuratively
arsonist.
burn the circle down, and just I would have just been like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks just to try and destroy other people's game. But I don't know if Brew has that in him, because
I don't think
otherwise,
it's in his
like,
nature.
huh?
I don't think it's in his nature.
I don't think
Also,
it is either, but that would have been so funny if like he kind of like Jatia'd the rice, like he just dumps the shit
and then
out.
stays.
Yeah, like he something catches on where people realize like, oh, for Brew to come out with like a calm, cool, collected Brew to say this, maybe we do need to look out for, and then whatever shit he said, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's my like fan fiction version of this.
I will say that it does make sense for like Yuling to do that because it gains favor with Brew. But to me, it's like, if you think about it, I always view it as social capital.
Mhm.
Like, how how can I gain favor and social capital? And while she's gaining favor and social capital with Brew, it's like I felt like she could have it would have been better if she would have gamed it with someone else, because we just saw that Brew was second to last. His rating was 6. There were the two newbies were ahead of him.
Mhm.
Like they were gonna be safe regardless because Frank is also the other influencer.
Yeah.
So it's just like I wish she would have gained favor with other people where
No,
she needed it to a little
that's
bit
a good
more.
point, and
Yeah.
that I was kind of alluding to that. I didn't wanna, like, fast forward straight to the finale, but I agree that to have that foresight would be important for Ewing, but Bruce safe, so, um,
The crowd boos. The
the
crowd
crowd
being an individual named Josie.
did the crowd boo or brew?
I I'm so upset. I've had enough brew puns to last me a lifetime. That upset me. And I know if you would have said that in front of him, he would have cackled. He would have cackled. It was a good dad joke. I'll give it to you. But
I'm laughing at your reaction, not at my own joke. I swear. All right, so we've got the last part of this episode. We get an alert saying that Everson and Carol must go to the same room to await their fate to see who gets blocked. And I like this component of it. I
I
think it's
do too.
kind of cool. So we are halfway through last week's episodes. I just have to find the notes. Nope, that's the wrong one. Here we go. Great. So at the beginning of episode 11, we have Carol and Everson meeting. Everson thought Carol was real. Everson is the only one who thought Carol was real.
Everson is on a whole other planet. I have to say this. I have yet to see this man use a cup. I've yet to see it. I've yet to see it. I would like him, now that the season is over, I would love him to do an Instagram live or something. And someone record it so that I can see him actually drink from a cup so that I can die at peace. Like, I just feel like I will not rest properly until I find him. I see him sipping on a normal cup. It could be styrofoam, it could be a red solo cup, it could be a plastic one. I'll take anything. I'll take anything. Just give me a cup. But no, I feel like he's just on his own universe, and like he hasn't seen everything from the beginning, and like I think because if Everson
That's
was
true.
probably there at the start, I think he would have also figured it out. But I think he was just so receptive to the older lady, which is really what that catfish profile is about. You're
Hmm.
obviously going to be drawn to the older woman because you think of your mom, a grandmother, whatever it may be, because that person is supposed to signify comfort. And so, in principle, I understand why he was drawn into them, and then they had that conversation, and he was like, "Ah, I love her," and he wasn't thinking, um, is she really her? I think he was like, ah, the wine in Italy is so funny, and was on Team Carol from since at that point.
Yeah, you do have a good point that he wasn't there from the beginning. And it could almost be a good thing. I do think, like, him not realizing it does show that he isn't thinking about the game entirely, but this really is the first season, and I'm gonna give Brew some credit here. I think spearheaded by Brew of the, "You know what? Even if they are catfish, like, I don't give a fuck if they benefit me, then, like, cool, whatever. I'm gonna take the loyalty that they're showing me, the relationship that they're giving me." And so for Everson to come in that late, I do understand overlooking that stuff and just trying to be on the best of terms with everyone there, because
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have to, like, grasp at straws to make these connections that other people have had so much longer to make. So it's a little concerning to me that he thought that Carol was real, but at the same time, I can understand coming in and just needing to hit the ground running, because
Mm-hmm.
you don't it doesn't matter at the end of the day if that person's gonna, like, rank you high, then you want them around, whether or not they're playing themselves or they aren't.
I just I I also think that clash between Mama Carol and Yu Ling, like you kind of picks you all of them kind of pick sides.
Mhm.
And I think Everson made it clear that he was picking Mama's Carol's side, and then I think that also initiated that conversation between the two of them.
Yeah.
And so I think he was just trying to pick someone, and he picked Mama Carol. And because like you want to think the best in your ally, you're like, oh, this is real. You're real because you're my ally. Because he thought Yuling was a catfish after that interaction, which Yuling has not given catfish once. So I don't know. I think he sought an ally. He felt like the vibes were great and just wanted to assume the best, or just not think about it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, fair. I don't fault him for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we go to Frank and Yuling in the influencer chat, and they each give their reasoning for who should or shouldn't go. So a couple things that get brought up. Frank said he's hesitant to trust Carol, and Yuling says Carol was part of saving her, but also says that Carol lied to her. To which using those things in the same sentence to me was kind of confusing, like back to back. Like, well, Carol did save me, but Carol lied to me. Like the thing that Carol lied about is the exact thing that you just said, which was that Carol was the reason you were saved. So using that as a pro to keeping Carol, I don't know. That was just a very perplexing thing to me because also the other person responsible for saving her is her
Right
other
there.
influencer. Like, fuck. Okay. Anyway, I was pretty annoyed with Yuling at this point. So my notes towards her are relative. I can see it in my punctuation. Like half the things she does, I have like 9 question marks after. Like the fuck are you doing? So anyway,
It's okay.
um,
So we have I I'm a Yuling apologist, so it's okay. We'll balance each other out.
perfect. They talk about the pleas, how they were both strong, and um, that Carol would be indebted to them because Carol doesn't really have many allies left, and um, but they're not sure if they can trust Carol's connections. It was a lot
Mm-hmm.
about Carol and the debate back and forth about whether or not they should keep Carol, and less about Everson. Frank says he does feel like he owes Everson for saving him first in the safety chain, which allowed him to make sure that Yuling was safe.
Mm-hmm.
Everson's also highly rated, and Yuling's like, well, I feel loyal to Everson because of Everson's loyalty to Frank. Again, I had a question mark after this because that to me just seemed like she was reaching. Does that make sense to you?
I just feel like I just feel like they have to strategize. Like I feel like productions like you have to talk about this or like make
Mm-hmm.
points because like I just feel like Yuling was always gonna want Carol out,
Carol,
and
yeah.
I feel like Everson is just like a casualty of like stronger relationships, and that's why he's even in this position. And
Mm-hmm.
it's literally nothing against him.
Yeah.
Like they don't know him enough. Like he's new. Like he's fresh. Like no one really has anything. He's just disposable is the word I'm going to use. Whereas, like for example, Imani is not because she has these strong relationships with Rachel, with Frank, with Yuling, and so on and so forth. So I think that they were just like I think Frank was being genuine, but I just feel like Yuling was like I want like genuine in the sense of like what he was saying is valid, and he's speaking from his heart and how he feels about these players. Whereas Yuling, not to say that she wasn't genuine, but it just felt like we all knew that she wanted her out, and so she was like kind of like I feel like she had to say stuff to like fill in
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? I feel like
I get
production
it.
was probably like,
I get it.
okay, give us your reasoning.
It just made her say dumb shit though. So like not maybe not dumb, but more like conflicting.
Mm-hmm.
That was just like, I don't what point are you making right
Mm-hmm.
now? Um Yuling did have a good point that we see come to fruition a bit more so in the finale than anything else, where she says she's unsure where Everson's loyalties lie, especially with her. So I thought that was now that we've seen everything a little bit foreshadowing. But in conclusion, they come to their conclusion, which is they're gonna block Carol, and um, Carol tells. Well, I guess we can call him John now. Carol, aka John, tells Everson on the way out, like Brew has people's backs, and Yuling's the person to watch out for. We were in alliance, which like that was also Carol's like man-made alliance or like forced alliance, I guess. Like all the girls, we're in alliance, day one, there we go. Where and then there was like no follow through or checking up on said alliance. But yeah, Carol, you guys were definitely in alliance for sure. Um,
Lord.
so Carol is blocked. How are you feeling about this?
I am excited and jubilee. I had Alyssa
Jubilee.
go had first. Then Carol, I was like, all I need is Brew to go, and I'm at peace. I was like, I just need I was overjoyed. Carol did nothing for me in this game. I had a lot of frustrations in some of the decisions that were made, and honestly, that conversation with Everson really does impact the game because he knows no better. Like he doesn't know anything. He doesn't see everything. He just because he's so new and fresh, he has to take what you're
Mhm.
saying and take it. He can't take it with a grain of salt. He can't take it at face value. He has to strive with it because he has literally nothing.
Mhm.
And so it's just it was just giving fake news to me. I for lack of a better word. And I think I was just like, John, you either just wanted to paint a target on you, link spot, or you genuinely believe everything that you're saying. And I'm concerned for the second one if you genuinely believe that. Because just because you make a girl's chat and you say that you have them, it doesn't mean it's an alliance. You don't even have an alliance name. Okay? Not to be technical, but I feel like if you're gonna have an alliance, unless it's between two people, if you're gonna have an alliance with a big group of people, there should be a name attached to it. I don't make the rules. It's alliance etiquette. Thank you.
Um, I feel like you know how you'll see, especially on people who are like in the media or just maybe like in prominent places throughout society in their Twitter bios, they'll say retweets are not endorsements. Carol needed the advice that like group chats are not alliances, and that could have helped Carol's game. But yeah, I think that Rachel actually did the best in explaining Carol in that her personality felt too much like branding. And
Mm-hmm.
something that I was thinking about is that so if Carol is 63 in real life, right? At that point, Carol has been a mom for 20 plus years. I feel like when you're a mom for that long, I don't wanna say that it's not as much as, like it's definitely a part of your identity, your core identity, like, you're a mother, you've raised children, you've gone through birth, you've gone through the trials and tribulations, the costs of it, all of that. I'm not taking that away, but I feel like new mothers especially are the ones that it's, like, buying mom everything. "I'm a mom," but, like, blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
like, on Instagram posting I have someone that I used to work with just gave she posted like 10 plus photos from her like looking at stuff in a baby store for her like upcoming child. But by the time that you're 63, it's like, okay, I'm a mom. Like I've been a mom. It's not something that you need to remind everyone of every single
Mm-hmm.
time you're interacting with them. And I do think that if John laid off the branding and gave more of himself, but just made sure to like not say, I don't know, like Gen Z slang, that he could have done a better job with it.
I I agree. I think, and this is why I've really grown to appreciate Rachel because everything I'm thinking, she just says. Because I think I said this to you. I was like, we get it. Your mama Carol. It
Mhm.
feels like I'm pretty sure I said that it was like giving branding to a degree or something along those lines. So thank you, Rachel, for vocalizing that because I needed someone to. But
Mhm.
I don't know. It just feels like to me, I think about my mom. Not to say that my mom was 63 because she's not, but
I think mine is. No, wait, no, no, no. She turned 60. My mom's 61.
my mom's still in her 50s. I would have to do the math, but sorry, mom. I don't know your actual age, but wait, I actually can calculate it in my head. She's probably like 51,
Mhm.
51, 50. Actually, she's probably gonna turn 50, anyways. But all that to say is that if you, first of all, my mom is a lot of things, but if you went up to her I think she would talk about me maybe once and move on. Cause
Mhm.
she has some like she's a teacher. She like she does her like hobbies and stuff like that. Like my mom is passionate about other things, and she could probably talk to you about the passionate stuff and be like, "Oh yeah, and I'm also a mom to a girl who's in university," and like leave it at that. And so to me, it's like if you're 63, you've experienced life. You've experienced 6 decades.
Mhm.
Like get into that. You know, I would have rather John play the cool old mom,
Mhm.
like more of an advice type vibe,
Mhm.
kind of like what Alyssa did with like the advice. Like
Mhm.
I would have rather that. I think there was a player who played like that, and I can't remember who it was, but it was like I think was it Joey? I'm blanking, but it was also another Italian guy who played his mom, and he played it.
Joey played himself. He was annoying as
Oh, it
fuck.
wasn't. It was. Oh, I also do. I trust me. I do not like Joey, but someone in the Circle verse. I've watched too many of them. Um, played his mom and just played like showed the wedding dresses and stuff like that. I think it was the
Mhm.
prior season because oh no, it was an older lady and she got cloned. And there was like pictures like that were revealed about her life. And
Mhm.
she was just talking about her life. Whoever cloned her though did win because it was more creative. But that's
Mhm.
what I mean. You're talking about creative, adventurous aspects of your life
Mhm.
and making it believable. I would rather someone play someone who's experienced life, who's give birth, who's whatever, then like this whole like I'm a mom and I'm just a mom and I'm your
Mhm.
mom even though you don't know me.
Mhm.
And too much of it, too much of it. John's game was just very confusing to me. Like some of the decisions being made, like I don't know. Usually the people who I don't really root for, I don't understand their gameplay.
Mhm.
So leave it at that.
Yeah, shoot. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. The last thing I'm gonna say about this is, and I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the season, I said that I was afraid that they were gonna shove Alyssa being like a sex coach down our throats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and instead, like that happened with John being a mom. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but they're gone. It's fine. See you later. We keep it moving. Um, I think a funny comment from the video where John reveals himself as playing his mom Carol, because I don't think like anything worthwhile was really said in the circle chat about um Carol, but more so that Brew, when he saw the video, he's like, he looks like he'd be in a Queen cover band, and I've been calling this guy mom for the last 2 weeks. That Brew made me laugh there. Um, and Brew also owned up to the fact, or well, so Brew implied, not owned up to the fact. Brew implied, like, yeah, I had a decent idea that Carol was a catfish, but it didn't stop me from like putting trust in Carol anyway. And that kind of like raised uh some eyebrows because like, oh really, Brew, like actually, Brew, you really think? And then I think in other ways it kind of made people think like, oh, Brew might be playing a little bit, like he might be playing harder than we think because he's willing to ignore that Carol is a catfish to benefit his game. So I think different people interpreted that different ways.
Sorry, I'm giggling because I'm in a group chat and they're talking about Russell Hantz and someone doesn't know who Russell Hantz is.
They're
And so
lucky.
someone was like, "Oh, they're the villains of villains." And then like someone was like, "What do you mean?" And then he goes, "He burned everyone's socks." And I forgot that that was a thing. And like the season ended, so it just made me laugh. Sorry. I need
I
to turn
actually
my
forgot that that
notifications
was
off.
the thing too. um okay,
So
anyway,
stupid.
but um oh, what was it? Fruling. Oh, I thought Everson's message in the circle chat was funny as well when he called Frank and Yuling's like influencer chat Fruling and
Hmm.
said that John looked like a combination of Braveheart and Jon Snow's love child. Like Everson's funny. He's
Hmm.
probably a great cruise director. I believe that.
Oh yeah, no, there's one moment a little bit later. I think we'll talk about it like when we recap the finale where I was like, Everson is just a vibe. Like he's just on one, like in a good
Mhm.
way. And
Yeah.
so I was like, yeah, he would be a great cruise director, and I would love to be on that boat just to see what the vibes are.
Mhm. Um, After the circle chat, we get a chat with Brew, Frank, and Yuling.
Mm.
And Frank's like, "Oh, the OGs," and I was like, "Oh, I thought we were gonna avoid the OG chatter." Frank let me down a little bit there, but it didn't seem to weigh too much on things. Um, and those three just were like laying it on each other. Like I get it, but also I don't know. I kind of like roll my eyes at it a bit.
You
Like,
want to talk about surface again? I mean, it's right there. I just like, I don't know. I just feel like the how can I say this in a way? Because I don't want to sound like a bitch. Like I don't want to sound like a bad person or that I'm just hating on the cast or whatever. But to me, it's like it's a long term game, and so for you to come in and just think you can just like buddy it up with someone who you've not interacted with, like you just had your first conversation with the day
mhm,
prior. I just found it really annoying and stupid. Like I'm like, this just feels fake. I would have rather like a sincere thing. Like I don't want to say sincere and compare it to the conversation later between Frank and Nathan, but on some like, I know that I haven't talked to you and stuff like that, but I just want to
mhm,
tell you that I appreciate you and stuff like that. And I know that we started together and we haven't built that connection. But I feel like recently, like be honest, like let's not fluff each like anyone and everyone can be like, thank you so much for saving me. Like you're such a great person. That like anyone and everyone can do that. Two drunk girls at a bar can do it. Like I mean, like you're gonna go in here and do it for your game. Like it's not. It has no value. It has no substance. It has no worth to it. And I just found it really ridiculous. And again, like if you're gonna appeal to them, why don't you show that vulnerability that you were talking about earlier? Like
mhm,
I don't know. Like again, like the math isn't mathing with me. Like I just hate people who say shit, like just talk shit for like not talk shit, but like talking their shit and like it just don't make sense and then they
mhm.
fail to do it themselves. Like that annoys me. Like
Okay, I have two really important questions for you, and neither have to do with the circle. So,
great.
but I need to get these off my chest. I
Go
was
ahead.
listening to everything you said, I promise. First and foremost, are you good at math? Because you like say that the math isn't mathing a lot, and so are you good at math to check the mathing? I'm just wondering.
Um well, the game I just played yesterday,
The one you won? The
the
one
one
that
I
I was
won
like, "Should I
is
podcast about?"
it's literally a math game.
Oh,
So
shut the fuck up.
yeah. It's like social math. It's really interesting. Like it has like the social aspect of someone said like explained it the best. It has the social aspect of Survivor,
Mhm.
but then math. So you have to be good at math. So the math is mathing for me. I might as well have gotten a PhD in math. I mean,
All
the
right,
results are
killer.
calculating. Per.
All right, killer. I have 2 degrees in math, so that's why I'm
Oh,
asking.
I study comms. So I don't know if that still answers your question.
I didn't know if we'd, like, nerd out on some math after,
I
but
did do I don't know if you would know what this is because it's like it's around the world but select areas in specific countries. Do you know what the IB program is?
yeah, I taught at an IB school, and I fucking
I
hated it.
I did IB and then
Yeah.
I did math and stuff like that. I got a 6 in math. So
Oh,
the rating scale is from 1 to 7, y'all, by the
yeah.
way. For those who
Oh,
don't
really?
know what it
Ours
is.
is 1 to or well, the rubrics were 1 to 9. Anyway, this is getting off topic. That's, like, super off topic. But, yeah, I didn't teach IB classes because I felt the IB kids at my school, like, carried themselves with this, like, sense of arrogance that I was just like, "Yo, there's been plenty of people who've been successful that didn't do the IB program, so, like, stop
It
acting like you're
it
better
is a
than the kids
scam.
who are in the."
IB is a scam. Sorry, not
Yeah.
sorry.
No,
As someone who
it
did it, I'll tell you.
100% is. 100% is.
Paying to do
Yeah.
exams in USD as a anyways, let me not get into the scam that is
My
IB.
second my second question is actually more of a statement, and I don't know if you're noticing this, but your, like, LED lights line up perfectly with where the circle of our background is. So
At first, I didn't realize it because it was a little bit off. Originally, it was like this, and
Oh
I'm like, "Oh, let
no,
me
you
fix
just fucked
it."
it up. It was so
No, no,
good.
no. I that's what I did. It originally, when we started the show, you can go back. It's
Okay,
not
you lined
good,
it up
and then
on
I
purpose.
lined it up on
Okay.
purpose instead of
If you're not watching this podcast, which most of you do listen to it, that whole last part like probably
it
makes no
makes
sense,
no
but
sense.
if you've seen our logo, whether it's like on your podcast app or on Twitter or whatever, but we
Mhm.
have a circle that looks somewhat similar to the circle that's on the outside of the apartment building. And Josiane has these like LED lights up in her room, and uh it lines up like perfectly because like our videos cover up the circle a bit. And so I, as Josie was talking about the last thing, I'm just sitting there being like, oh shit, it like it lines with their circle entirely. Anyway, let's keep going. So um Josie can do math and she can line up, she can make shapes. That's it. You are good at math. I'm proud of you. So
Thanks.
you podcast about a shape. So it all makes sense now.
It's a
Uh,
math thing, you would
this
say?
is yeah, this is now a geometry podcast. Um, so next we've got portrait mode, and portrait mode always has the opportunity to get dicey as fuck. So each player gets assigned someone else in the circle, and they have to paint a portrait of that person. Whoever painted each other remains anonymous. So let's just jump straight into, I'll say who the person has, and then we could talk about the picture. So Yuling has brew. It's the first one that gets shown. She makes like a strawberry brew barb. Nice picture. Anything you want to say?
Great.
Perfect. So brew has Rachel. Brew said this was supposed to be spicy. I thought it was kind of tame, but basically it was like a picture of Rachel spilling tea. Did it say like tea spiller or whatever on it? Something like that. But in conclusion, what did you think of this, Josiane?
That picture made me realize how different cultures take that, because if someone would have drawn that, I mean, I would be like, yeah, I spilled the tea. I always give you
Yeah.
the truth. I give you how it is. My tea's always popping hot. Like, I think I would have taken that with stride. And I also think that Brew wasn't doing it in like really in a really mean way. Like, I really don't
Mhm.
think that was his vibe. I think he was just like taking it in the way kind of that I'm saying it, but like a little bit
Mhm.
different in his like way. And so for them to be like, "Oh my god," and I'm like, "That's the order of how they're showing these pictures is best to worst." So that being second, like, you guys
Yeah.
are in for a whirlwind if you think that's bad. Like, I
Mhm.
don't know.
Last night, my boyfriend texted me like, "Oh, tea's being spilled," and I'm like, "Oh, is there drama?" Because he's at his like bartender summer camp, right? And he's like, "No, like shit's lit right now." I'm like, "Then what the fuck? Like, I thought I was about to get a good story. Like, you're using this wrong, Lavelle. What is going on?" I was
Like,
like actually annoyed at him because it's like, oh, like tell me something good, like.
yeah.
Who got caught fucking in the woods? Tell me. And he's like, no, it's just like everyone's having a good time. Like, that's not how it gets used. Anyway, um, next we have Rachel paint Imani, and she did hot mama and said like she's a looks like a sexy Terminator, I guess, or someone said she looked like a sexy Terminator. I don't know. Can we keep going? Great.
Yeah.
So Amani had Nathan, and here's our first one where like, okay, we're putting anonymous mode into full effect.
Yes,
So
God.
Amani drew like a split picture, and half of it was like a 22-year-old looking boy, and then the other half looked exactly like Alex. Like he had a picture
His shirt.
of Alex in his fucking apartment, shirt and all. Oh my god, it was so funny when Alex is like, he has my shirt exactly right and everything. Dude, that was so funny. Um Amani had Nathan completely clocked. Like
Per.
completely.
Per.
That
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed by that, truly.
I love that. And I honestly, you know what's crazy to me? I really don't think Imani Trevor was really thinking like, I know in my heart that he's 45. I think she was like, what can I do to F up Nathan's game?
Mhm.
What can I use against him? And then lined it up so perfectly that it made sense. Like, I think Trevor is a smart player for sure.
Mhm.
For a player who just got in, I think obviously getting inside information, whatnot, whatever. But you're in that house alone, so for you to have that like aim, I think was like really like the incidents,
Mhm.
like the odds of that happening, like just really good.
Trevor had been saying throughout their time there that, um, something was off about Nathan, like,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't exactly surprising to me that they, first of all, gave Nathan to Amani 'cause Amani was really the only one who,
Mm-hmm.
um, besides Brew had, some doubts, but then after the golf thing, he kinda, like, let it go. Um, so it didn't really surprise me, but it was more just, like, how right they were in the painting. I don't know. I have a lot of Amani thoughts, especially after, discussing the finale with some of my friends,
Mm.
that, like, I'm really excited to talk about Amani in that episode, but I can't get there yet. So, um, just remind well, you don't need to be reminded. I'm very ready to talk about it because uh, I was very much the minority in my stance, and I'm ready to defend it on my fucking podcast because you all clowns don't have one. So if if
When you send them this link.
yeah, they don't listen. I don't send them the stuff just because no one's asked, and I feel like if you're actually my friend, you'll ask. So um, I'm very guarded in my friendships, but yeah. So when you guys have your own podcast, you can have your shitty opinion on there, but mine's right. So anyway,
That do you know who Eugene is from the Try Guys?
I don't know any of the words you just said.
Okay, so you know, okay. There's this so the Try Guys is like this group that started on BuzzFeed, but they
Mhm.
actually like it was like the gold age of BuzzFeed, like when all
Like
of
when
us used to.
Quinta was there and
Yeah, yeah.
everything. Yeah.
And so they made their separate channel, and Eugene specifically, love him. I'm not gonna say that, but probably one of the best Try Guys. Anyways, but he has this they have like their different like shows, for lack of a better word, and
Mhm.
his is ranking where he ranks things and he goes, I'm right, you're wrong, shut up. And I was like,
Mhm.
that gives me very you energy right now.
One of my favorite expressions to use is when someone gives an opinion and I'm like, "Oh, I know that opinions aren't supposed to be right or wrong, but yours is incredibly wrong." Like, I will say that to people all the time. Like, nah, you like
Thank you for
I
the
could
wrong opinion.
yeah, like I know I learned in school that opinions can't be right or wrong, but
Yeah.
yours actually beats the odds. So
I'm gonna use that in an argument in the future. Thank you for that.
anytime. I am talking shit's one of my favorite things to do. Like catching me in the moment and just uh there was times teaching where like I would say something and I didn't even think like I was responding in like a bratty or mean way and kids would be like,
Mhm.
"Oh, like she just messed up your whole life." And I'm like, if you want me to mess up your life, like that was like I had to go like 6 or 7 things back. I had to like censor myself that many times. Like
That's so funny. Because I
and so
definitely was one of those kids that was like, oh, she just said that. Oh, what are you gonna do about it? Like I that was definitely me.
mhm.
And definitely elementary school.
Yeah, mine were high schoolers, so all right. Anyway, so I loved the picture. I especially that Amani is just like spot on. Next, we have Nathan who has Frank, and Nathan draws a snake. Writes that Frank's a backstabber. He's the nicest snake in town. Is he Mr. Popular or Mr. Shady? What do you think about Nathan's move here to try and take down Frank? I don't know. Frank the snake kind of goes. So, but anyway.
Sorry, I was trying to see how that rhymes.
No, no,
Frank.
I'm not saying it rhymes.
Oh,
I didn't say it rhymes. I just think that like it goes well together. Like Frank the
oh,
snake, Frank the snake. I could
I'm
chant that
so dead.
at
Anyone who
someone like, I could see him like doing a beer bong and just being like Frank the snake, Frank
Oh,
the
okay, I feel
snake.
you. I feel you. Okay, anyone who watches this, like the visual, will literally see me try to calculate in my
Yeah.
brain how that rhymes.
You're trying to math rhyming. We
I
get
was trying to
it.
math it, and it was clearly English. And as someone who studies communication, that's quite embarrassing. But I will say it just reminded me of Manrika's drawing from the
Uh-huh.
UK.
You mean my favorite circle player of all time.
She was robbed, but then again, she thought with her heart and not her head.
Mhm.
Yeah, I said it. Sorry, Manrika. We stand. We love you, but come on. Um, we hold all our favorite players accountable here. But I will say like it just reminded me of that, and I think I saw a tweet where he then agree to that statement. Like, I
Mhm.
think he was like, "Oh, I learned from the best" or something.
Mhm.
Which shows he does his research and which shows that he actually is a fan of the show. I feel like
Mhm.
sometimes people will say that they're a fan of the show and just watch the Netflix version,
Yeah.
and that's like their gameplay and strategies beyond years
Mhm.
aside from the Netflix one. So um I was like, I get it. I get what you were trying to do, but sometimes I feel like a more discreet diss is better than calling someone a snake, and here's why. In the moment of you drawing it, you are like going ham. You're like, you're gonna get this player. People are gonna spread doubt. But I feel like people forget that people have to think that you drew something else. And I
Mhm.
think this backfires on him because while people might not think, Nate drew this one, they have to think that he drew another one. Like one of the other drawings that we've seen. And it's like clear as day that Yuling did the bruise.
Mhm.
Spilling the tea one, okay. The hot mama one just screams Rachel. Like
Yeah.
I don't think anyone on that show would say hot mama but Rachel. So
Right.
it's just like you're dwindling your odds of people of like while you're drawing or whatever, or you're trying to make it seem more girly or whatever it may be, you're also decreasing the odds of you being able to claim or like pretend like you did another drawing.
Mhm.
So math wise, at this rate, we've seen technically only two good drawings, and there's like 8 people left, I think, at that rate.
Mhm.
So 8 or 7. So it's like I would have rathered him done something a little bit more discreet, more on a brew level, even though bruise wasn't, I don't think, intentional. If you sneak something in there, I think that causes more paranoia than you just drawing a big ass snake. Like people are gonna be like, "Ah, oh, you're exaggerating. You're just trying to be messy." Like if you're gonna go that way, like I
Yeah.
don't know. I think there's a better way in his specific position.
Yeah. I agree. I think that the full on, like, Amani did it perfectly. Amani was shady enough but
Mm-hmm.
not offensive.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the line you have to tread with these. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to get people thinking in a way that's going to question the trust that they've built in people, while also not offending people. Where the reaction to, especially like calling Frank a snake of all people,
Who's been
um,
an influencer like three
and
times at that point?
everyone immediately upon just even reading his profile is like, "Yo, this dude is sick. Like, I want to be his best friend." Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. And similarly, when we talk about the one that's made of Yuling, like, that is just so like ugly. And it, again, you could take those swings in a way where it's like, try, if you're saying that Yuling like looks like that, it's just, I don't know. It's, you can't be offensive in this if you want it to be effective. You have to find that line. And I think really the only person that did was Amani.
Yeah, because I think a big thing of this is like you don't want it to. I think this is what I was trying to say earlier. You don't want it to reflect on you.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? If someone draws something and they make a point, people are thinking more about the point that was being made versus like who would have done that, who would have drawn me.
Mhm.
Whereas like when you do the what he did and what we'll talk about Emerson doing, you're people are now thinking who the hell drew me or who the hell drew that, like especially when it's like something that's like in your face, you're like whoa, you know what I mean, it's just not expected. And I just think that that was not an efficient way to do that because at that point Nathan has already started to like throw Prue under the bus. I think it would have been better if he would have done a drawing that was positive about Frank and leave something that could give him the impression that Nathan drew that. I think it's always
Mhm.
smart to do something good. If you're gonna be like, if you're gonna diss someone, do it again like Imani. But if you don't think you can do that, if you don't think you can do it in a tasteful way,
Mhm.
compliment the person and then make sure that that person feels like it's most likely you, because
Mhm.
that's gonna gain favor for you long term. Especially with Frank, who has literally Frank and Yuling both have been in power at least 2 times at this point.
Mhm.
So if you have someone like that, gain favor.
Yeah.
You're not gonna make people flip on someone out of nowhere when they just won number one influencer. I mean, the math was not mathing in that stance.
Mhm. No, I agree. Um, the next picture we got was Frank drawing Everson. It was a nice picture. I mean, it was like a stick figure, but it was a nice picture nonetheless.
Cruise
Yeah.
director.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, Frank, you really reached for the stars there.
it was giving
Um,
Picasso. I'm just
yeah,
saying.
truly. Put um, in the Met. Anyway, then we get to Everson's drawing of
Mm.
Yuling, and everyone read it as mean. But there was something there where it said fake flirt, and Everson, even though Everson's was like hideous, he did enough to at least cast mystery over who made it, because multiple people, and most importantly Yuling, thought that Nathan did it. And that helped his game a bit in this aspect. But again, like we were just saying, there's a way to do this. Everson had more parts of it correct than I think um, Nathan did in how to do
Mhm.
it, with that little like fake flirt part, because it definitely casts the shadow on someone else and not him. But on top of like drawing that ugly ass gremlin, like that's just rude. That's just
if
rude.
if you want my honest opinion on this, like sincere, I don't think he did the fake flirt thing for strategy. I think he just thought, how can I diss you, Ling? Because okay, just to rewind again, all he has is information that John has given him and what he's seen, and he's seen that Yuling has flirted in the chat, and so I think he was just like fake flirt and not thinking if I write fake flirt, they're gonna think it's Nathan, or else they would have put that in the show because he
Mhm.
would have had to like how they do these like explanation of the drawings and blah blah. Blah.
Yeah.
I don't think that he thought that that seed he was planting was putting Nate in trouble. Like I really don't think that like that's what he was thinking. I
Mhm.
could be wrong, but I don't know. I feel like that would have been vocalized and it was not. Especially since that's a big impact that did happen and like had a big result at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And so overall, I was like, I don't think he did that on purpose, but I think it was luck that that was something that she picked out on
Mhm.
and did it. Also, I think it makes so much more sense for new players like Imani and Everson to draw disses
Mhm.
because they have to create distrust between the people who have been connected. And like when you don't know someone, you're the last person there. If someone doesn't know you, or whatnot, or hasn't had time with you, they're probably the least likely person that you're gonna think is gonna write a diss because they don't know anything about you. You would probably think that they would want to suck up to you. So it makes more sense for players like Emerson to do that, especially with Yuling being in a position and they don't even have a relationship, so he doesn't lose anything from doing that. Whereas
Right.
like Nathan is that's not the case with Nathan. Like at all. So I think that's the only reason why it works more towards Emerson because the realities of like where both players are situated at this point in the game is so different. So they needed to utilize it in the same way, like in two different ways versus like Imani and Emerson who are coming on the same wavelength, on the same boat, coming together, whatever. They need to create that distrust. So it makes sense. But again, like we talked about, Imani did it in a tasteful way that was more effective than Emerson did.
Mhm. The only reason I'm willing to give Everson some credit for the fake flirt thing is that he kind of like picked up on it before the Mama Carol stuff. Like when it got brought up in that group chat, in the circle chat, and like Yuling said like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like flirting with Nathan. However, she said it. Like they did cut to him being like, "Oh, so these two." Um, so I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that there was something there. I think there was some suspicion, and then his conversations with John, aka Mama Carol, kind of like it came with the gasoline and lit the fire.
I what I mean by I don't want to give him credit is because I think the move here isn't the fact that he wrote hashtag fake flirt. I think the move is that people think that drawing is done by Nathan. I
Mhm.
think that's the move, and I don't think that was done on
You don't
purpose
think
on
he
his part.
intentionally did that?
No, I think he said, I've seen her flirt, so I'm gonna say that she's a fake flirt. I think honestly he probably did it to put distrust in Nathan and not vice versa.
Mhm.
Like I really don't think that he set out for what the goal of that. I think the goal of that image was to make Yuling a target and get her out because she is the biggest threat. And I
Mhm.
think it actually what it did is that it served in potentially getting Nathan out and then putting a target on him. So that's why I don't want to credit that.
Got it. I get what you're saying. Um, after this picture, we get a little bit of commentary from everyone. So you get Frank being like, "I'm sick of this circle family shit," and then this happens, and
Mm,
Amani's like, "Why is everybody kissing each other's ass all the time?" And
mm.
um, basically, you have the commentary. I don't think that there was anything like monumental that came out of this. Um,
I
is
was
there
just
anything?
thankful. I was thankful that we were having some real ass talk.
Mhm.
Frank said it best. He said, "I don't understand why we were talking all this circle family shit if we're just gonna jab each other." Thank you. Why is the circle? I've already said this. Why is that a thing? Why are we pushing that? Like,
I mean, Frank's the biggest perpetrator of pushing
yeah,
the
but he
circle
also
family
didn't
thing.
do a bad
Yeah,
drawing.
he's not shady in that. So, like, I understand both, but I don't think that
It's because every single person in that at that point in time has been like, "Welcome to the Circle family," or "I'm so glad to be a part of the Circle family." Like everyone has claimed that, and
mhm,
so for them to do that, and then for them to do backstab, which again I'm here for. Like I don't want it to sound like I'm not, but I'm like, thank you. Can we just wake up that whole Circle family commentary because y'all are not like a lot of them. I'm sorry. I personally, in my life, would not draw my friends that way.
mhm,
Um, if I played a mini, I probably wouldn't do all that either. And I'm not going out of my way to be like, "Oh, you're my sir, you're my you're my judge challenge family. You're my strategic aspect." Like those words would never come out of my mouth because I know
mhm.
that that's not true and it's not foundational. And I'm not saying that the relationships they made aren't, but I'm just like, yes, wake it up because I'm tired of this BS. And I'm also on the other side of the coin, Imani being like, everyone's kissing each other's ass. I agree. You know what? I'm so here for that. I love the anonymous games because I love the mess and I love the chaos.
Mhm.
Like that's what I'm here for. And so I like it when people utilize this time to like do it. But again, if you're gonna utilize it, do it in a way that benefits your game so that it's more enjoyable. But the more dumpster fire energy, the better. And so I was here for both of their comments on that regard.
I feel like I don't know. Uh, the whole circle family thing, like it annoys me just because of like the whole we've been in here for 3 days, we're family or whatever. Um, but like every season does it. So I guess it's just like I don't know. I
If
understand Frank is frustrated by it, but it's also part of the game. And the other like side of that though is Frank isn't. It's not that Frank isn't playing a game. He definitely is, but like Frank operates on no strategy and all like connection, vibes, and emotional intelligence. So, um, I understand his frustration. I don't know. I was just like, I mean, you can't expect shit to not go down. Like people are going. You've been at the top whole game. If what do you expect to happen? People have to take swings at you, or what? Just like let you fucking hold a basket of flowers and toss petals as you skip your way to $150,000. Like, I don't know. I understand his frustration, but um, I just am like, come on, buddy,
No,
come on.
I agree with that. I agree with that. It's a game, so you should expect those things. But I like the commentary about the Circle family because up until this point, everyone was still calling each other the Circle family.
Yeah.
after like talking shit about the other player, and I was just
Mhm.
like over it. I and I'm saying this, but I'm sure if either one of us gets casted, we'll definitely at some point hashtag circle family at some point because it's a part of the game as
I
well.
can promise you, I if
You
I were
will.
I
You
wouldn't.
will.
If I get put on that game, I'm gonna be no,
What would
like
you say?
sup. That's it. You aren't getting circle family. I'm like, that's not me. And even like, I think if I were to
I
apply
don't
again,
think
because
that's
I did apply
anyone.
as myself. No, I think there are people like that. The people. There's actually definitely people like that.
But I think a lot of people play it up.
Oh, for sure. But
Like I would
um,
play it up, even though I'm talking mad shit about it.
yeah, I don't know if I could. That would be really difficult for me.
Really?
Yeah, truly. I'm
For
not.
150
But I
k.
also think that if you don't like suck up in that way and you kind of do things in your own way, like you set your I feel like you feel more real than it's like, "Oh, circle family, like we're going to go on a cruise together after this." Shut the fuck up. No you aren't. Like you're not doing that. You're
But
not doing
kissing
it. We
ass
all
is a
know
part of
it.
the game. Like that's why
I don't
I
think
would
that's
feel
kissing ass though. I think that's just like that's just going along with the crowd where I mean, you don't have to sit there and be like, "No, you guys aren't my family." But I do think that you can be like I think there's a way to approach it like, "Hey, yeah, like cool, we've just met each other and like there's so many of you I've connected with already." But I'm not going to sit there and be like, "We're blood brothers." Like I don't know.
fair.
It's just I don't operate like that as a person. I never have. I never will. And I think that that can separate you on a game like this is not succumbing to like the group think of like, oh, we're this, oh, we're that, blah, blah, blah. And like having your own unique views and ways of like showing that you care and showing that you appreciate these connections and like creating your own connections without just being like, I'm a hashtag circle family person.
I don't know. I no, I not what I'm gonna say is not to disagree with you because like obviously I believe what you when you talk about yourself and how you would go about life. Like I believe you on that. I think I think this is why I'm not gonna rank reality TV shows now from like what I like the best to the worst, but like I think the circle is at the end of the day a popularity contest.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you to gain favor, I feel like before you can be the kingpin or the queen bee or whatever term you want to use, you have to fit into the crowd, which is low key unfortunate. But you
Mm-hmm.
have to find the majority of that group and kind of in some way or form a clique because I'm using high school terminology, I guess, because it is
Mm-hmm.
pretty much like high school. And then once you have your clique, you have to work your way up and be the favorite person within that clique.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people utilize circle family in that sense to draw inclusivity, to draw togetherness and foundational strength and all that jazz and like creating this sort of like I have you again a sense of comfort, which is like a big thing. And that,
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of winners have won because they give a sense of comfort to a lot
Mm-hmm.
of players. And so while I hate it because I'm oh, like stop saying that. You just that like that's like that to me is the equivalent of like dating someone for a week and being like, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the equivalent of that to me. Um so like I get the frustration and it could easily just be like welcome to the Big Brother family. It could just easily be like you've been casted on the show that X amount of people have been casted on. But the way like they've used it in the past just gives me the ick. And so that's why I can't when that circle family comic comes up, it can be interpreted in so much different ways, but there's so much baggage from other seasons where people have like not manipulated, but weaponized that in a weird
Mm-hmm.
way that I've just not been a fan of. So that's why it kind of gives me the ick. Not to say that it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't disagree with the strategy. I don't know. I've rolled my eyes each time it's said. I will continue to roll my eyes each time it's said.
You and me both.
That I just can't imagine going in and being like, I am now the second born child of the sister
Mama kid.
family. Yeah. Like, all right, I'd rather just just punch me, like right in the face. Pick a side. I don't give a fuck.
Well,
Anyway,
just
so
punch me. Oh well. Well.
um so after this we get Rachel chatting Amani, and Rachel opens up about her concerns, especially with Yuling, and how she was so surprised that that Yuling saved Brew first. Amani and Rachel agree that they haven't seen the side of Yuling that was showcased in the portrait, but um, what really comes out of this is that Rachel and Amani kind of firm up that relationship that they have.
I think this is the first time during this show that I've been like, huh, with Rachel. I think
Mhm.
everything she's done, I'm like, oh, incredible, never been done before, amazing, spectacular, whatever.
Mhm.
And then we get to this point, and I'm like, what is that really all it takes? Like, for you to falter? Like, you have a good thing going. Why are
Mhm.
you causing yourself more paranoia? Like, it's an anonymous game. People are going to use that to their advantage. And it doesn't matter because Yuling has literally saved you.
Mhm. I think it's just that Rachel is the type of person that can't sit with something on their own. They need to say it out loud to someone else. And
I
so I don't think it was meant in a way to like be detrimental. I just think that Rachel needed someone to be like, okay, like talk me off this ledge. What are you thinking? I trust your opinion. Um, because she obviously couldn't go to Frank about it. She can't go to Yuling about it. And so I think like Amani is the next choice. And I don't think it was like used as a way to like manipulate into like tightening up their friendship or whatever. But everything she like any thought that she's had, she hasn't kept it to herself. She has any
mm,
suspicion, any sort of doubt, negativity, whatever it is, like she has told someone else. So it just like didn't surprise me that
mm,
she wanted to like get this off her chest, because she did have Yuling on such a pedestal, and not that like she shouldn't or whatever. But she needs to talk about it. That's what she's done the whole game, is she has to talk about what she's thinking. And so I think Amani was the one she went to for it.
okay, when you put it in that, like when you put it in that mind frame and the way you've just laid it out for me, I that does make sense. For sure. And I'm not saying it was a bad thing that she did that. It's just that I was so shocked that that drawing had so, like, to me it felt like there was a big effect on her,
Mhm.
because if she later on, like, there's going to be conversation that she's going to be in with Yuling and stuff, if she doesn't have this conversation with Yuling, like, Yuling is probably lost in her rankings. Do you know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like, it had such an effect on her, even though there's, like, everyone has different perspectives and you can only go based off how she's treated you, and
Mhm.
she's shown nothing but favor to you. So that's why I
Mhm.
was like shocked that it had that much of an effect, that
Mhm.
she really had to go and, like, you know what I mean.
Yeah. I just think she isn't the best at wrestling with her own thoughts, and
Mm,
has to say it out loud to someone.
mm-hmm,
Um to be fair, I'm usually one of those people. So like I understand where I'm like
mm-hmm,
I will be mad about something, and then once I just like yell it at someone, not even at the person that or like thing or whatever situation, just like
mm-hmm,
I need someone to hear it. And then I'm like, okay, I feel better about this. Like I said it out loud, and someone either like validated what I was feeling, told me it sucked, or gave me feedback that made me think about it a different way. But like, okay, I'm better. And I think that Rachel and I have that in common, because
mm.
she's done it all game. After this chat, we get Brew starting a chat with Everson and Amani, and they play Two Truths and a Lie. And I usually hate that game, but I was slightly entertained by this.
I think just I get Bruce trying to get, like, favor from them.
Mhm.
But, like, true truths and a lie, that was your best strategy. Like, I get it, but it's like, I don't know how many messages you have left. You don't know when's the next ranking. Like,
Mhm.
there's deadlines that have to be met from the production team, and, like, that's what you're getting to get them on your side. And even then, like at some point, it feels like Brew is not even there. Like it was
Mhm.
not that efficient. Like he got to know them a little bit more, I guess, but like um game wise, it wasn't efficient at all to his game.
No, and Bruce said that. He was like, "Am I in a love story right now?" And that they can't even or they can't care less that I'm in this chat at the moment. Everson and Amani were definitely flirting it up, and at one point, Everson even said, "I thought you said you weren't a mom. Are you trying to be one?"
Lord, it
Ah.
Lord. Oh my
Okay.
god.
And then probably the chat that could have the most effect on the future of this game is our next and last chat of this episode where we have Nathan chatting Frank. So Nathan reaches out to Frank after the mean picture that he made of him and wants to see how he's doing.
Which is
Um
smart because less
yeah.
suspicion on him.
Yeah. So Frank says that he doesn't think Nathan is a catfish, and Nathan goes, I've been avoiding talking to you. Brew told me early on that you were someone to watch out for, and that you, Brew, and
Frank.
Paul had a
Paul.
chat. Yeah, because you was Frank in this. So Frank, Brew, and Paul had a chat, and then Frank ended up blocking Paul, which is all true. But anyway, he's like, I let Brew sway me too much. And now this gets Frank thinking a bit that Brew drew the snake, and Nathan said, like, I'm so sorry for holding on to this for so long. And um I want Frank Nathan said, I want Frank to get blocked, but I don't see that happening. So his next best option is to get Frank to keep him around because he sees Frank regularly being at the top of the rating list and being in power. So his best bet is to throw Brew under as many buses as he can. He Regina George's the shit out of Brew.
I think this is what made his snake move make sense
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more, because when you get that reveal and the initial reactions and then seeing Everson's portrait and people just being like, well, I don't think anything else is Nathan, so it has to be this one. It doesn't like look like great, but to get favor from Frank by going to him and being like, I can't believe someone said that, and then also to have use Imani's picture to his advantage was smart gameplay for sure. And like I think if he doesn't do that, that picture like that whole thing is ridiculous and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he follows through with it. And to have that information and kind of use that as an excuse is very like if you've just done a shitty way, like if you never wanted to be aligned with Frank and like now you have to because he's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for you to use that as an excuse makes your story seem so legit, and then the blame from like having a not that great of a relationship does goes from like your fault to someone else's fault, which is like
Yeah.
really good. So I think that was very smart and strategic on his part, but is it a little too late? We'll see.
We will see. That is the end of episode 11, and it means we're at our last episode
Woo-hoo.
before the finale episode.
Mhm.
And we get into it with Frank chatting with Rachel and Yuling. He doesn't plan on telling the two of them about his conversation with Nathan. He's going to keep that one close to the chest. And Yuling asks the two of them if they think that Nathan might have drawn her portrait from the previous day. And Rachel's like, I didn't even think that Nathan was a catfish until yesterday. And I always just thought that he was like wise beyond his years. um, Frank then changes his mind and lets them know that Nathan reached out for the first time last night. So he does mention the conversation. They start tying together like, wow, we've all talked to him how many times and we really don't know anything about him. And
Mm.
that is like the oh shit moment for any catfish when they realize like, oh, you haven't given us any information about you. You're playing this like very surface level
Mhm.
person. That is bad news bears. That is always like the first sign of the downfall, in my opinion, of any catfish. Whether or not you're even going after them because they're a catfish, it's the first sign that, like, oh, something's off about this.
Yeah, I think I just found it really interesting how, like, I get being forthcoming and being honest with your number one allies for sure. But for me, what like kind of threw me off is the fact that like Rachel has him and Yu has him. So
Mhm,
Yu having these thoughts. If I was Rachel and I know that Nathan has my back, I'm immediately going, no, I don't think he would do that.
mhm,
Like he, especially since they've had conversations about how he feels about Yu and within his character. So I would have, for my ally, I wouldn't have lied because it's she's asking you for an opinion, so you can't be right or wrong unless
mhm.
Carrie says so. And so I just think that that would have been better for her game because Nathan is more like is a vote that she has more so than Brew or Everson. So why like help fuel that fire for an ally who has your back? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, she can I think what she did there wasn't incredibly detrimental because I don't think that anyone is gonna go back to Nathan and say, Rachel kinda made a good point that we don't really know anything about you," versus, like, someone is more likely to go back to him and be like, "Yuling thinks that you made the drawing of her." That is much more detrimental information, and so I think part of it is the fact that Rachel she is weighing, she has someone who has told her that that Rachel is their number one ally, but she also has 2 allies here, and 2 allies are better than 1 ally.
But three
So
allies are better than two allies. Like, do you know what I mean?
but who's the 3rd?
It would have been in this say like okay. Here's where I'm at. I would have rather Rachel go, "Oh, I see your concerns. However, I'm not 100%. I'm leaning more towards no because they were just having an honest conversation.
Mhm,
She was asking advice from her friends. It's like when you
mhm,
ask someone, "Is this outfit look good on me?" and you just
mhm,
want the honest truth. That's what I felt like this conversation was between like, the girls. And
mhm,
so to me, it would have made more sense for Rachel to go, "No, I don't think so. I think someone could," even if she doesn't believe it, because she says that Yuling starts to think otherwise. She starts thinking, maybe it isn't Nathan. I should have a conversation with Nathan about this, clear this up rather than distance myself because my paranoia is to the point where I think it's him.
mhm,
And like Frank would have chimed in about the conversation, and maybe that would have been obviously it could have led to, oh, we don't really know Nathan, but it's like I would have rather her kind of speak in the sense to like defend him a little so that there's less doubt and that there's more odds of him staying. Because if you think about it, Frank can't rank himself, so he would rank Rachel in his top two, and so would Yuling, and
mhm,
so would like Nathan if he stays. But if people don't, if his allies, his closest allies, because at this rate he's thrown Brew under the bus, so he literally doesn't have Brew anymore because he's setting him up. So if
mhm,
the allies that you're striving for is this group of people, then you're obviously gonna like he's probably gonna rank Rachel higher. So it would make more sense for him to stay, for Frank to stay, and Yuling to stay versus Brute and Emerson. And then that gives her a chance, a more likelihood to win the final. Because it's like you have to know how many days you're gonna stay in an isolated area. So if it's it ends at day 26 and you're at day 24, the final is coming. So you're helping your ally have less doubt against him so that he's not the most disposable person in the game left so
mhm,
that he can rank in your favor because Nathan has like when Rachel saved him that was it for him. That was like that's my number one. At
mhm,
that point it was like Rachel and Brew, and now he's throwing Brew under the bus, so it's just Rachel. So for them to have doubt in Nathan doesn't benefit her game more than it does if she goes, I see your doubt, but I don't think that he would do that because this. I'm not saying that she needs to be like, I can't believe you guys think this, he would do this, blah, blah. Like you can give them the I hear you and you're asking me my opinion, and here's what I think. It's like that aspect of like you think like Brew, for example, thinking knowing that Mama Carol's a catfish, but he doesn't care because Mama Carol will always probably rank him first. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I understood more as you explained it. Because I think at first I was saying I think that there's still a similar outcome for Rachel, where you were kind of looking more to the final than I was in my thought process with this. Cause like I think in that moment that like yes, your goal is to get to the final. However, um even if Rachel doesn't go and necessarily, like, have Nathan's back, no one in that group is gonna go and turn and say it to Nathan, like, what Rachel said. So, that's why I think, like, she'll still have Nathan regardless.
Yeah.
Um, so I get your point in terms of, like, going forward, but I also think that that kind of removes, um like, the wild card component of Alex because or, like, if he is in the final, because even though Rachel's his number 1, he's going to see that let's say he gets to the final, right? He's gonna see that Rachel is connected to Frank and Yuling, and so even though Rachel's his number 1, there's no way he puts her in that 1 spot
But
because
there's no way that he would not put Frank or like, do you know what I mean?
no,
Like,
yeah, but it's gonna be like an Everson or Amani, whoever is there instead. So, like, at most, maybe it's a number 2, but, so I do like, I get your point. I just think it's, like, a little bit too forward thinking in the moment because who also, in addition, like, who is guessing that this, like, back-to-back block is happening the way it is? I think that if you've watched the show before, which it seems like they all have, that you're assuming that a super influencer is coming, but I don't know if you're assuming that like you're having an auto block at the second to last rating. You know what I mean? So
I
that's
kind
where
of
I
forgot
think it's
about the
like
auto block, to be honest. Like, I think it was more so like, why, like, I don't know, maybe it's just like the way I go about it, but I feel like Rachel's in a really safe position. Like, she's with Nathan being the topic of conversation and Brew just being very disposable at this point. I think just going along with the flow does nothing for her game than sticking up for Nathan, because like even if it's not that effective, I feel like it's more of a butterfly effect thing where it's going to be more cost effective. And even if Imani and Everson get rated higher in his ranks, like odds are like odds are is that Rachel, Yuling, and Frank are gonna rate each other top three or at least,
mhm,
and so Rachel's gonna be ahead slightly, even if it's not because she's in first, but she's in third rather. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I just like I get what you're saying by like long term thinking, but it's also like to me it's like I think a lot of players have been thinking short term, and that's why they've been flopping. Like I
mhm,
think Alyssa thought, like I think she thought long term, but not really. And I think Mama Carol did not think long term at all. And I don't think, well, I'm not gonna spoil, but the person who leaves didn't think long term at all. So I feel like you need to. I think when you're at the stretch, I think this is also because I just had a conversation with Kevin who won Big Brother Canada, where it's like the first few weeks it's about short term, just surviving,
mhm,
and then when you're in the long straight, it should be long game. And I think that this point is long game because they've announced that no one else is coming in. So you're just picking people off until you're the last five, the last five, or yeah, the last five.
but
The
that to
final has
me
always been
is
five.
short-term game because you're just picking people off, like, you're more I think it's really hard in the circle to really have uh, an outlook that of, like, anything but me, again, because, like, each we've only had what, like, 2 normal blockings where it's the 2 influencers choosing someone to block, and then everything else has been some sort of twist to it that, like, I think it's just hard to prepare for that, and so, I don't know, like, I think no matter what, she's fine, and so like, this conversation maybe be going, like, too much in depth on something that, like, maybe doesn't even matter, um, I just don't know if that, like, I don't know if Nathan's worth saving or Nathan's, like, worth putting your neck out there for, I guess is it in, like, the grand scheme. It's probably, like, if I were to make 1 point from all this, is it worth putting your neck out there for Nathan to your 2 biggest allies? Because then do they start, like, doing the question thing, like the dog hearing a weird noise, head turn at you, you know? That's
I
all.
Yeah, I do think subtlety, if she would have done it with subtlety, whatever she would have done, it would have been fine. But like even
I don't know if
she
Rachel knows subtlety.
okay, well, but I will say you said something. Oh, you said something, and it was like it really resonated with me. But I'm like blanking on it. You were talking about not if he's worth saving. Oh my god, what was I thinking? Maybe it'll come back to me. But I think I was like I can't remember what I was gonna say. Well, we'll just move on. But oh, I'm annoyed. Like I literally had it. I had it. I had it. I had it. I had it. Regarding oh, yes, okay, I remember. You were saying they've only had 2 normal blockings, but I feel
Mhm,
like wouldn't that be more wise to wanna help your allies who are more in trouble? Because you never know what is happening. So, you never know what can happen, and so it's better to have safety in numbers because if someone has to save someone, you have 3 options instead of 2.
mhm,
If someone has to if it's a vote, well, you have 3 people who aren't going to vote for you against someone else. Like, I feel like if you prepare or like try to like lower doubt within someone who is an ally who will help you at the end of the day
mhm.
to get to that final, that's even short term as well. Because like at least it's the next week and then you can keep doing that or whatnot. But that was my last point.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I also think that this kind of, like, completely disregards Rachel's relationship with Amani, and so again, like, Rachel's got numbers, and
Mm,
so, like, I go back to the idea of, do I want? Because it only takes one comment at this point to make people's, um, like, heads turn and be and reconsider what's going on. So if it is the comment of defending Nathan when it's a 2v1 and not defending Nathan, you know what I mean? That's like, does she risk does she risk being questioned? Does she like does this have a negative impact on her? I don't know. Like it didn't happen, so we don't know. But um I
like,
could see like Yu Ling being like, wait, what the fuck? Like I thought we're supposed to be girls and you're kind of over here like defending the guy who
but
painted me as a gremlin. She might
I
not
don't think
say
they were
that to Rachel, but I think she might say it out loud in her apartment.
no, for sure, but I don't think Yuling was at like if the conversation was Nathan did this, then I wouldn't be raising this point.
Yeah,
But this conversation
but
was
there's a
I'm
question.
not sure, do you think it is?
Mhm.
But also my with your point to Imani, I do see their relationship. It's just that in a perfect world where Rachel will probably win, that her best final five option is
Yeah, it includes
Nathan,
Nathan,
Nathan, Imani,
Frank, and
Frank, and
Ewing.
Yuling with her.
Yeah.
That's her perfect scenario for her to win. So there's like two other people, and you never know what's gonna happen. But again, I'm thinking days wise. Like if there's 2 days left, you're
Mhm.
gonna know that there's an immediate blocking. You know what I mean?
Yep.
That's where I was at. But yeah,
Yeah. I do wonder if they know how many days they're in there for.
they must like it
I don't
must be in the
know.
contract. Like you're signing on for. I know like when I tried to audition for Big Brother Canada, it was like 90 days.
Mhm.
And then they like if it's not 90 days, I'm pretty sure they voice that.
Got it. All right. Well, we talked a lot about something that almost has no impact on anything that happens anyway
Yeah.
going forward. Um, but I do think that it kind of like brings up interesting points for just kind of like the gameplay of the circle as well, which again, like I'm really excited to talk about the finale because there's a lot of components of this season that kind of like get tied up together or like the loose ends get tied.
Mm,
And um this conversation we're having I think becomes very relevant once we can talk about the finale. So anyway, um Brew chats with Nathan and like Nathan comes heavy with the strategy talk. Like he's not even trying to like butter Brew up as his bro anymore. He basically just like lays it out. um, and Nathan repeats the question because like Brew doesn't answer it. Like, who do you think made my picture? Brew doesn't answer. He asks again, like, who do you think made my picture? And Nathan thinks at the end of this that it's either Amani or Everson because they know Nathan the least. But so again, we get one last like Brew Nathan chat before never mind. If it was the opposite way around, that would have been a good joke. Forget the chuckle I just had. I was so close to having something witty, but it wasn't in the right order. So anyway, this next part I don't want to talk about. I fucking hate family visits. I fucking hate videos from home.
Oh, I don't
I
want to talk about that.
do not care about them. If that's something that you enjoy in this shit, we are two different types of people. I don't give a fuck. I've always said that if I'm on Survivor, send my dog out there. Like, do not send me a human. Send me my dog.
Like I get what it's I feel like it's great for the players, but I and like sometimes I can get emotional, but at this specific point, I was just like skip forward, next.
Yeah. And um then they have a Thanksgiving meal, which I don't think much really happens here except for Frank saying that Frank opens up about being thankful for his circle family and then he says that he's willing to put behind him whatever Nathan said about Brew. So we don't know like if held to the fire like that stays true, but it does seem like Frank's gonna look past it based off of the relationship that he's created with Brew and things Brew said during Thanksgiving.
Yeah, the Thanksgiving thing was really weird because like I'm watching this in May,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, so they filmed this like in November, so it's been months. Like, how many seasons have they? Like, when I watched that, I like my mind started thinking, how many seasons have they filmed since then? Because if this happens in November, blah blah blah, like they're probably in production. Like, I was just thinking everything but that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also, first of all, bless Frank's heart for being again vulnerable and sweet. Love him. Um, that was great, but yeah, it didn't do anything. Like I feel like it was a very like thankful like family and all that stuff. Also, is Circle Family the new Vibes?
Oh God.
Because we said Circle Family this episode as many times as I think we said Vibes in like that one specific
Mm-hmm.
coverage episode.
um the next thing that happens is the ratings, and they're told the lowest rated player will be blocked tonight. So I have a question for you in this. Do you like that they told them that the lowest rated player will be blocked? Or would you have preferred, hey, do your ratings, and then after the ratings, they go, alert, the lowest rated player will be blocked?
I would have liked it immediately after
I
the
think it would have
rating.
made it better because I
Yeah.
feel like you're doing like obviously it allows them to be more strategic. I tweeted, I'm like, how much time do they have to do these ratings? Because if it was me, and I'm sure that I would probably be doing this like throughout the entire time because there's nothing else to do. I would probably be trying to like make what I think other people's ratings are so that I could like math my way to the highest likelihood of happening what I want to happen. Um so like do they only have like 30 minutes to rate people? Do they have 10 minutes to rate people? I do wonder about that. But I understand like allowing them to think strategically about it, but I think you kind of hold more true to what the circle is supposed to be if you say rate the people and then after everyone submitted their ratings you say okay, based off these ratings, instead of it being the highest person being the influencer, the lowest person is automatically blocked because it it's supposed to be a popularity contest. That's what they harp on. And so it's no longer a popularity contest when you are getting to purposefully throw your votes towards certain people being at the lowest. You're supposed to be purposefully throwing your votes to try and get who you want to be in the highest to be the most popular. So I would have personally preferred if it was done my way.
I what I meant by that, I think I misinterpreted your question. I
Mhm.
thought you were saying like, would you have rather them done the rankings, done all of that filler, and then announce that the rankings are top to bottom, or would you have rather it immediately after? And on a production standpoint, for them to have like bigger reactions to it, I would have liked
Mhm.
if it happened after it. But in terms of like, would I have rather players knowing that whoever they're ranking the lowest will probably go home? Absolutely. And this goes to the point about not like knowing the game that you're playing. Like to me, it just feels like you're changing the rules and you're not advising it, and you're screwing people over like ha ha ha, like whatever. Like the twist is fine. It's still fine if you let them know about it, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, again, it's about balance. And so like some people are going off of heart and some people are going off of strategy, but it's all entirely reliant on the rules of the game. So when you switch the rules up out of nowhere, it's like you're taking us out of the game, which I'm not a fan of, because it's like if I was playing it and I, like, let's say hypothetically I really wanted to be influencer and I knew that my allies is probably going to be influencer. I really wanted it, or not my ally, but like someone I'm working with, but like I don't want them to be in power. Even if I'm working with them, I would rank them last because I would position myself to be first. And so to then possibly have that alert come in later and like me be upset because the rules of the game has changed and I wasn't notified, I think that's effed up. Like I'm not here
So
for that.
then do you think the super secret influencer is effed up because that was a surprise? I think that those 2 things
No, because
balance each
that's
other out.
no, because the super influencer is still within the rules of the game, because you are still ranking people to be like, the reward is who's in first.
Mhm.
The rules are that. It just so happens that in normal setting it's two people, and in this time it's just who's number one. So when
Mhm.
you're ranking people, you're ranking for number one, like so that they can be this influencer. If you're
Mhm.
ranking people for them to get second, I don't think that's the best strategy to have. Sorry, not sorry. Even though there's like two influencers, you're that's still within the rules of the game, even if it's a surprise. You're just
But
removing the second place influencer, which is still a ranking system based off popularity, whereas like that's like detrimental. I don't know.
in this
I
instance,
don't,
I
it
don't
doesn't feel the
think,
same.
like, it aligns with what you're saying because the rule of this specific part of the game was put your votes so that the lowest person gets blocked, right? So then they didn't re-rank for the highest one. They didn't have, and like Nathan said this, he's like, "Oh shit, I stacked my votes in a way to make sure Brew would be last." He did not put any consideration into who would be first. So then in this instance, the super secret influencer isn't within the rules of the game because the rules were established that your lowest person is being blocked and that the top didn't matter.
No, I think we're talking about like two different things, because for me, like the fact that, so let's say hypothetically they're not doing last person goes, first person is, the first two people are super influencers. Then for me, it's like I want either, it's either I trust my allies completely so I don't mind them being first, second, or I want to be an influencer because I don't feel safe. So let me do it in the best so that I will be first. If you don't trust people and you feel like you absolutely have to be an influencer, then no one's really your ally, because at that point you're feeling like anyone and everyone can send you home.
Mhm.
And so in that sense, there's still this clarity that you're aiming for yourself or your allies to be number one or number two. With the super secret influencers, you're just removing that second person, but you still have that number one. So it's still
I
that point.
I get all that, but like my point in this is that in this specific instance of this specific season of this specific super secret influencer, no one knew that that was going to be an outcome. The only thing that they were told to do was to vote to put people or put like the lowest person was going. So your point was you want the rules to be set. Like, so in this case, the super secret influencer no one had the opportunity to prepare for. They were only preparing for the lowest one. You know what I mean? So that's my like that's my point. And what you're saying is that like you wouldn't want it to be like, okay, surprise, the lowest person is going, because that doesn't follow the rules of the game. So in this case, because the rules were set for this round, plan on the lowest person going, there was no willingness, or like there was no preparedness for who would end up in top, then having the biggest power of the whole entire game determining the final five. You get what
Wait,
I'm saying?
I think I get what you're saying. I think like what I think what's blanking in my mind is that I'm talking like in a general sense. Like
Yeah, so I'm at first I was talking about this, and then I realized like, oh, I should have made the point that in this case, like, because you had I to me in okay, so to me, I think that there would have been a nice balance of just do the ratings, and then at the end of after all the ratings are done, you say, okay, the lowest person is auto blocked. They didn't know it. And then after that, the um, we have a super secret influencer. So to me, that would have had
I
balance and
agree
like
with
them
that.
not knowing
I
the
agree with that.
rules. So because then the point I was trying to make was like, well, you're like, well, it's not within the rules. Like, I want to know the rules of what I'm doing. So then, like, in the instance of what we saw, that kind of didn't really happen because no one
No, I get what you're saying.
prepared for a super secret influencer in their votes.
Mhm.
They only prepared for the bottom. And
Yeah.
so I feel like the what could have been done better is both were the surprise. Vote normally, because then you still have like the component of whoever is on top is still has that power, but you just auto lose the bottom person.
No, I agree with that 100%. My like I think it's
I
like
get what you're saying, that like you want to know how you're voting.
I just want it to be equal.
Yeah, you
So
want it to be consistent. And I
so
agree with that.
if the rule is it's going to be entirely a surprise, don't say anything, but or you say both, just like not half and half,
Yeah.
because then like because in the mindset of it still being a surprise, it's still within the rules of the game because you should technically be ranking people from whatever top to
Mhm.
bottom. So that's still within the limits of the game. So that is true. I agree with that. So
Mhm.
it's like I don't want it half because then it's not within
Right,
the
and
rules
I
at all.
if they can't tell them both, because if you tell them both are happening, then it's just a normal rating. You know what I mean? Like, you really don't
Yeah,
fuck with your shit. So you really have to either tell them none of it or all of it. And, like, this in
yeah.
halfway in between, like, I do get your point of, like, let me know what I'm doing, because then I've done this one way, but you're throwing this different thing at me. Um, that makes sense to me. I can agree with that for sure, but I think the best way to have done this would have been one that, like, blindside them both, you know? Because then you still have, like, power within the rankings that you had, and you maybe don't it's harder for, like, someone to manipulate it, and you do come back more to, like, the true meaning of the show, which is this is a popularity contest, not an anti-popularity contest, and we drop like, you're aiming to
Mhm.
drop the lowest person. I think you still keep that component of, like, this is what the goal is.
And what I'm saying is like I don't want to say that I have a preference for them telling them the entire truth.
Yeah.
It's more so just like it feels like some piece of integrity from the game is like
Yeah.
being taken away. On a production standpoint, I agree. Like I think it makes more sense to surprise them. And everything, there's nothing more I can add to what you're everything that you just said. Like that is exactly verbatim what I would think as well. But yeah, it's more so on the integrity level of the game because I'm thinking like if I was playing the game, I'd be so effing annoyed.
Mhm.
Like I would feel like you kind of just screwed me when
Yeah.
like the game is supposed to be technically fair.
Yeah.
Everyone's supposed to have an equal fighting chance, you know?
My roommate and I were actually just talking about something like this because, like, the 2 of us know each other because of Survivor, and,
Mhm.
neither of us watched last season, but I watched this season, and I was like, "You should really, like, if you're interested, you should watch this one, it was a good one," and he's like, "I'm just so sick of, like, all these advantages and twists, because I know if I was in the game and I got fucked over on some stupid advantage, I would
Like
be
a Suri
fucking
thing.
pissed." Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, like, a whole variety of them, I guess, but Um,
Even like the do or die, like that's something I
yeah,
think is like, oh, and like we literally had this conversation with Kevin, but it's like the do or die twist is like, why aren't you letting players know what they're betting on
yeah,
before you let them do that? Because that changed everything. It changes everything entirely. I don't think anyone goes up against Jonathan in that situation and then it's just a regular vote out.
yeah,
But of course, production doesn't want that. But again, I
right.
feel like it takes away from the game a little bit. And it's like it being fair because that just favoritize like it shows favoritism to players who are competition beasts like Jonathan in that case.
Yeah,
Anyways.
no, I agree with you. But we'll save that for our future Survivor podcast that we have together.
Gee, if you're listening.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. The last thing I want is a Survivor podcast. That's the one thing that like I don't need to be on any silent podcasts, and that's not any slight at Gia. It's more so the fact that like I see people like Gia who know so much shit about Survivor, like and just like rattle it off like it's nothing, and it's so impressive to me that like my insight would not be valuable to anyone.
Mm,
I just don't. Uh, I have a very like surface level relationship with that show. I think after becoming involved in Rob Has a Podcast for a while and like seeing how many people were like so into it, it's a kind of like Big Brother kind of has the same effect on me. I just don't watch Big Brother and I'll still watch Survivor. That like it almost like turns me off in a way that um I need to have a surface level relationship with it. But I respect
mhm,
people like Gia who can like she just amazes me with how much she knows and how
mm,
well she can like tie one thing to this to that to the other and just like
mm.
this is I'm only praising Gia and all this. You never ever
Josiane
ever
accounts right here.
after you yeah you never have to politely be like, oh, do you want no, please don't ever ask me. Okay. So I am worthless to you. Okay, let's get back to the circle. We're almost done with this. So all right, so we find out pretty bluntly that Brew is the player with the lowest rating, and
Blue.
uh, I was a little annoyed because Nathan made it seem like this was his doing entirely. Um, I don't know how true that is. Brew has been close to the bottom of the rankings, the safety chains, everything for a while now. Um, but okay, live your life. So,
Mm,
Brew does go and meet Nathan, and Alex lets him know that like, yeah, I rated you last. I also kind of told Frank that like you were talking shit. And Nathan's strategy is to go into the finale being the lowest level threat out of everybody. And Brew, I think, takes it in stride. There was a couple times where he was like, you could tell by his facial expressions that he was I don't know if it was like frustrated, annoyed, but it definitely wasn't a happy feeling. I did like though when he was leaving, like, all right, like good luck, man. Fuck you, but like good luck, man. um,
I mean, mm,
I would be the same way, so I think that's why I appreciate it because like I would be mad in the moment of like, shit, I am out, but I appreciate what you did. Like, clearly he doesn't mean it in a negative way. That would be my reaction. So I'm with Brew on how he handled this year.
I definitely am not mad at his reaction, but it's like it's like for me, it's like the same thing with like Alyssa. Like for people to think they're disposable, there was a lack somewhere in your game. Like,
Hmm.
in a ranking system, like it's one person's ranking. Yes, it'll have an effect, obviously, but for you to be dead last, like there was something not good with your game. Like, you know what I
I
mean?
think a distinct difference though in Brew and Alyssa is like Brew even said to Nathan, he's like, well, clearly I wasn't doing something right. Where like Alyssa came
Yeah.
in and was like, I was taking all these notes, I was doing this, I thought I had that. Um, so I think Brew was yeah, Brew missed a level of gameplay that he needed. Whether it was strategy like Alex or he needed to be more genuine like Frank, I think could be argued.
Mm.
But I think there was something lacking from his gameplay because clearly he didn't make the top 5.
No, for sure. When I'm comparing them both, their situations are completely different. It's more so like I feel like for me, I think I value social game in any aspect of any game show, reality competition, whatever you're doing. I value it a lot because it's like that's perception and like not to
Right.
like sound crazy, but like that's how like you have to manipulate people for you to be in a good standing. And that
Right.
sounds really fucking bad. But um all that to say is like, like I feel like that's the thing that's most in your control. Like if you get a random like makeup challenge or someone asks you a question and you don't know that, that's like an additional variable. Like the whole golfing thing, for
Mhm.
example, even though I do think that Alex should have studied about golf if you have pictures of golfing,
Yeah.
like I think that's something that like is less in his control than relationships that he like that Brew
Yeah.
and Alyssa should have worked on. Obviously like I do like, for example, Alyssa's complicated because Yuling and like seeing Yuling as her number one and thinking she was good, perception, reality, whatever. Whereas Brew, I've said from the beginning of this podcast, I do not know what the heck this man has been doing. I've said it every single episode. I do not understand this man's strategy. So for him to be finally gone, I did dance, I did jump, and I got the final six that I wanted. I was here for it. For sure. For sure. For sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he deserved a spot in the top 5. He was definitely, like, low in everything almost every
Literally.
single time, so was never an influencer. He kinda got, like, strung along, I think partially because he was one of the original players. If he had come in Rachel's spot or Nathan's spot, I don't think that he lasts more than the round that they're, like, immune from because they're new.
I agree.
After Brew gets blocked and he goes and visits Nathan, we then get another alert and we find out that tonight is a double blocking. So what the players didn't know is that now the top rated player from their rankings is the secret super influencer, and the secret super influencer, first of all, like gives me a speech impediment, but second, gets to decide who to block. They don't have to tell anyone. The circle will never expose them. And that is going to determine who makes the final 5. So the power of the final 5 and the creation of it is in Frank's hands. Obviously, we know Frank is in the final 5. So from here, we get the reveal of who is safe in no particular order. And we get that Rachel is safe. So welcome to the final 5, Rachel. Amani is safe. Welcome to the final 5, Amani. Frank is safe. We all knew that. He already got his welcome to the final 5. He's the governor of the final 5. Yuling is safe. Welcome to the final 5, Yuling, which leaves us with Everson and Nathan as the two battling for that last spot. And we get left on a cliffhanger for our finale to see who is our final 5 and the culmination of the show.
That was beautiful.
So, as we've implied many times, we've already watched the finale. Our game plan is to talk about the finale tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
we'll be back. And there's a lot I want to talk about with this finale because I think that I think there's gonna be a good conversation between us because like you are a strategic mastermind for
Oh,
sure. That is your thing.
thank you.
You also are great socially, where I think a bit more socially before I think strategically if we were to balance
Mm,
us out, you know what I mean? And so I
mm-hmm.
think that um to see like how things went down and to kind of like maybe judge some weaknesses in games, some strengths in games, compare it to some previous seasons and previous winners. Like I'm really excited to do that because I've been thinking about it a lot and I have a ton to say. So um that's where we're going to be tomorrow. You're going to get the finale coverage and then
Woo-hoo.
hopefully we'll be able to, not that we've like done any work for this, but I don't think it'll be that difficult. I'm hoping that we can reach out to some contestants. Actually, I did reach out to one and haven't gotten an email back. So I'm not gonna say who, but like
Sorry.
kind of pissed. I'm kind of mad. Too
Oh
busy
Lord.
making basketball TikToks for Lizzo. No shade, but anyway, so
Well, I
but
ain't say it.
I did. Um email me back, Krista. What the fuck? So
Maybe you should reach out to her via TikToks.
I
Just
think
like
I
duet her
I
and
honestly
just
think
like
I should
renegade
reach
a
out
little.
via DM because when like they were looking for the fan voting, she was like posting people's DMs on her Instagram story. I followed her only because I wanted to ask her to be on the show. Just so you know, I didn't follow for follow purposes.
Oh,
Um, but anyway, yeah. So we're gonna reach out. We have at least one connection, and hopefully being able to get someone on here, but we'll work on it. So in conclusion, join us tomorrow for our finale coverage where we're going to discuss our final 5, who wins, and unfortunately, spoiler alert, the Spice Girls don't show up.
sad.
I
That's
was
sad
so
to me.
pissed. I was really actually hoping they'd be there cuz I would have been sick.
I would have loved
So,
that.
yeah, me too. All right, let's round this out. Josiane, tell the people where you're on the internet, what you're doing these days besides winning more minis because that's all you do. So
Thanks. Thanks for that little plug about my mini ones. Kind of iconic. Well, yeah, y'all can follow me on all social media platforms that matter by the same username as always, Josiane XNM JOSA. Whoa, JOSIANE XNM. Can y'all tell how tired I am?
okay, but you never say the I when you spell it. So I'm pretty confident I got it right because I copied it from your Twitter. But when you
Yeah.
said it out loud at the end, you never say the I in your
Do I
thing.
not?
No. And so
Well, I can't
you've caught
spell my
yourself
name.
quite a few times tonight with 3.2 million, finally
So
including
you're
the
telling
I
me that
in
I've
your
been
name.
stupid this entire podcast. Love this for me. I love this for me. Apparently, I can't spell my name. I'm definitely not giving a kill end of the B. This is so dumb. Imagine people actually try to look me up and they could not find me because I was. Oh my god, that's so embarrassing for me. Well, now you know. So you guys can follow me on Twitter officially or on Instagram or PayPal me. Some credit card bills could be paid. I don't know. Now y'all have the right usernames apparently. I'm like, that's why I haven't gotten any PayPals, huh? That's why. Well, aside from embarrassing myself by not knowing my username on social media, I podcast. Obviously, here I am. Y'all hear my voice and the lack of brain cells that are being used. So aside from the circle, I occasionally show up on TJ Hates Quitters when Carrie wants me there.
I'm
Um,
trying to get a rotating cast of people. You'll be back. I
no,
had you for
I'm okay. I was like
yeah.
this week I was busy, so I was like,
Yeah.
yes,
I'm
I'm not
trying to
on.
get a rotating. I want to like get as many voices as I can and then before I start bringing back like the heavy hitters and the repeats. So,
Heavy
Josie will
hitters
definitely
and
be
the
back.
repeats. Yeah, so I'm occasionally on there. We just did an interview with Kevin, which I've referenced pretty much, because it literally made my day and it happened at 8 a.m. So it was brutal. Um,
Brutal? Brutal?
oh my lord. Oh my lord. But yeah, we did an interview with Kevin. He's so cool and it was a great conversation. You have to get into it. I'm in talks with Herman as well for him to come in. So, and Herman is a character. I don't know. He's just really good. Like I feel like he's a very entertaining house guest and I think he was really smart. So, keep an eye out for those things. So, Big Brother Canada coverage. Also, our episode of Just So Messy is coming out in a few days whenever
It's
Carrie
dropping.
decides.
Oh, do not blame this on me. Do not blame this on me.
Whenever Carrie
Do
decides
not.
to post it.
Okay, this bitch fucking is like put it up or like I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. Put it up whatever day doesn't have a lot of content. We've put out so many podcasts in the last like 3 days. So
Well,
well, okay, Wednesday night was Survivor, so like that just kind of negated everything. And I think did you send it to me Wednesday? I don't know. The
no,
day
no,
you sent it to me,
I
I
sent
was
to you on
nonstop
Tuesday.
all day. And so then Wednesday was Survivor.
Yeah,
Twitch, I was also nonstop all day. I worked and then I tutored 3 people and I came home to watch Marianne win and then I went to bed. So then
as you should.
Thursday, we recorded 2 podcasts, and then today there's at least you and I. Obi-Wan was supposed to happen today, but it's happening tomorrow. So I didn't want to put it on a day when there was like 3 podcasts that are going to be in the feed. So I was thinking about it, but it's going to drop this weekend, probably Sunday morning. Secrets
Well,
out.
Secrets out. We both found out at the same time. You, me, and the public found out. But yes, I just so damn messy is coming out. First time we did the Selling Sunset reunion recap, and our overall thoughts, y'all. If you think me and Carrie are like no filter, just wait until you listen to me and my friend, because we do not care. Like we just be talking shit to talk shit. So I think it's an interesting episode. So get into it. Sunday
Sunday
morning.
morning. Uh,
Prepare yourselves.
yes, the Lord's Day is now Josiane's day, so
I kind of love this. Both me and Jesus do have G's. That's one of the only letters apparently in
See,
my name that I can
you
remember.
just said G, it's a J.
I'm French, okay? Ask me to spell my name.
No one else is though, so
Josieine. XNM, tu vois, c'est en français. Jésus, Josiane. Great.
we need
Now we know.
subtitles on our podcast now. Um, all right, so
We're
let's
both
see.
G's though. Hey. Da 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 da. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Carrie.
We've got what do you mean we? It's me. It's just me. I've got the same username on anything worth finding me on. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and the Venmos.
Mhm.
So follow whatever you want to do. If you want to see like who I'm paying people and what I'm paying them for, follow me on there. Fine. Great. I send my roommate rent every month and that's basically it. So anyway, in terms of podcasting, we have one more official episode of episode podcasting about the circle together, and then hopefully we'll get some like player interviews soon. But you can also catch me on TJ Hates Quitters. I host that and I bring in different people each week. We cover the challenge. So far, Challenge All Stars is really good. We will also cover the Challenge USA whenever that comes out. It seems to be coming out in the near future. CBS is promoting the shit out of it. I also have 2 podcasts with my girl Katie. We podcast every week about the Real World Homecoming New Orleans on Stop Being Polite, and that is so much fun. There's only 2 more episodes, which is sad, but everything good must come to an end. And Katie and I also podcast each week about the Real Housewives and whatever goes down in that whole universe. So right now we only have Beverly Hills and Atlanta, but we do have the Real Housewives of Dubai starting next week, which is a brand new series. So if you are someone who has always been interested into getting into the Real Housewives, but it's daunting because some of these shows have been on for like 12 to 16 seasons, I'm definitely not talking to my current podcasting co-host at all. Dubai might be a good one to get into because you'd get to start fresh, brand new with us. So that starts June
Ooh,
1st. Definitely
Dubai.
catch us at Cool Water Show is our podcast Twitter. So definitely tweet at us. Where we try to live tweet as often as we can. So yeah, we have a bunch of things going on. In addition, I've got a couple of future projects that I've got ideas for that I just have to map out with the people who map things out with my fellow cartographers, I guess. And you'll be hearing me on some different stuff as our circle and real world coverage dies down for the time being. You can follow us on all the social medias. I always forget to turn my banner off every single time. Maybe not every, but a lot of them. So anyway, you can follow us on things that are important to follow us on, like Twitch and YouTube. You can watch us live, comment along. You can watch us later whenever you want to. Find us Silent Podcast for both of those. And we're on Twitter, silent_podcast. That is great to follow because we are always posting the links to our newest interviews. We'll retweet stuff that is worth listening to, whether it's from us or other creators, and just a great place to interact with us. So, we are soon expanding. We are in the middle of interviewing people. We are looking to expand our both reality TV and scripted TV coverage. So you should definitely follow, subscribe, rate, do all those things to help promote us because we are going to be doing great things for you. So do it or else. Just kidding. I won't do anything. I'll just sit here and make more podcasts.
You're gonna hear Carrie whether you like it or not. So you better help in some way,
Exactly.
shape, or form.
Just do what you're supposed to do. So, until tomorrow when we cover the finale, enjoy your night whenever you listen to this, your day, weekend, June, May, I don't know, whatever. Have a great life. We love you. Okay, bye.
Adios.